I have to go back to bed.
The will, very well. It was timely.
I was the one who set fire to stars.
De una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente.
We are on air. Happy new month, everybody. Glad that you could make time. Indeed, you're watching KBC Channel 1. This is Good Morning Kenya. We especially want to say thank you for keeping us company. It's a new month and a new opportunity to do better. I'm Regina Manyara.
Well, good morning to you again. Happy new month. It's August. At least the cold season is over. So also it just means that perhaps on the roads things won't be as bad as perhaps how it was in June and July, given the cold season, the rainy season. We'll be focusing on what will be happening along Bagati Way. This is simply because yesterday that road, in terms of that footbridge that was being installed, was already opened up to the public, so meaning it's now already in use. So how is all this going to affect the traffic flow, especially along that route, given the fact that oftentimes it serves a very good alternative routes for those coming from areas around Langat Road as well as also Valley Road? That will be our focus this morning when it comes to matters traffic. Many thanks for making time. I'm Doreen Rangi.
And a warm welcome once again to Good Morning Kenya. Kama kawaida, we thoroughly appreciate you for making time to be with us this fine Monday morning, the 2nd day of August 2021. I am Jane Mamboy, and as is tradition, every Monday we have our family conversations, and today it will be all about the youth and just seeing how we as a people can do better to just make sure that our youth are employable. All that will be coming up on our Family Check segment.
And good morning, my name is Victor Law. It's on this particular Monday that over 1 million students are reporting to Form 1 for the first time in the history and in the calendar that was disrupted by the COVID-19 situation in the country. A lot of students are going to school, and all we can do is to wish them the best of luck in the next 4 years. They are going to be in school. Meanwhile, in the next hour, we will be having a conversation. It has been a busy weekend, and we have got analysts to help us to dissect the matters that happened over the weekend. Meanwhile, it's time for Regina.
Indeed, as we mentioned earlier, this is the best place to be every morning, where we bring you up to speed with those stories that have been making headlines in the last 24 hours, and rightfully so. Victor, the country is geared to welcome Form 1s in various high schools this morning. In particular, we want to give thanks to those who actually made it to this selection. Remember, everybody is a winner. It doesn't really mean that you were selected to a school you never picked, that you in any way failed. Now, before we talk about matters of Form 1 admission, let us look at what is happening in our political scene, where ODM leader Raila Odinga has hinted at regrouping with his NASA colleagues to form a coalition that will face Deputy President William Ruto in next year's general election. Though he failed to state if he would join the One Kenya Alliance, Raila revealed that his unity meetings alongside President Uhuru Kenyatta will begin this week, and the agenda being solidifying different regions around the pro-handshake coalition.
The former Prime Minister, who was in Vihiga attending a funeral for the late wife to the Deputy Governor Patrick Saisi, says he could engage his colleagues in the now defunct NASA to form a strong coalition for next year's polls.
Wengine wanasema wanatoka. Hiyo haimaanishi kwamba hatuwezi kuungana tena. Hiyo NASA kazi yake ilikwisha, lakini huko mbele tutakuja pamoja.
Odinga revealing that in the coming week, 100 delegates from each of the Mulembe Nation counties will converge in Kakamega to deliberate on the formation of a coalition under a pro-handshake arrangement.
Na wapitisha azimio ya Western kutoka huko pande ya Pwani. Wapwani wataongea, kule mashariki, kule kaskazini mashariki, bonde la Ufa, alafu mlima. Walisema ya kwamba Raila hawezi kupanda milima. Sema nimepata punda mzuri zaidi ambaye ataweza kupanda milima.
Leaders from the region, however, imploring Odinga to support ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi, who enjoys support in the county.
Na mimi sina shida ya kukaa pamoja na ndugu zetu na tufanye kazi pamoja.
Baba, raundi hii kuna oka na okoa Kenya iko na Musalia Mudavadi.
Ndugu zako wote wako pamoja kwa One Kenya Alliance. Tunaomba Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga uende uwashike mkono, uwaonyeshe mahali tutapata hii uongozi ili tusitaribu wakati.
Sisi kama ANC tumesema sasa tutaenda kwenye debe ya president.
Mudavadi, on the other hand, has dismissed the approaches being fronted by his competitors in the resuscitation of the economy debate, saying Kenyans do not need theoretical models but tangible solutions. Mudavadi, who appeared to be taking a jibe at both Deputy President William Ruto and Raila Odinga, called on Kenyans to interrogate all the leaders who have fronted themselves for the presidential contest, saying some were being dishonest.
Watu wamekuwa wakizungumza sana kusema iko model hii. Mimi nataka niseme hakuna haja ya model. Model ni kama uko kwa classroom unafunza maprofesa, unatoa model na theory. Kila watu wanataka kujua kama kuna deni tutalipa deni namna gani. Kama kuna ushuru tutafanya nini huo ushuru upunguke.
Liberalized economy ni inji serikali kuweka enabling environment na kuachia wananchi kufanya mambo yao. Hakuna economy ya kupeana watu pesa kiholela vile mnaambia, kwa sababu wakisema hivyo itakuwa tu kama zile laptops, itakuwa tu kama zile 9 stadiums.
Juzi nilipeana hesabu nikamwambia watu mnadanganywa ati bottom up. Hakuna bottom up. Ukihesabu watu tunakupatia watu pesa kila mtu. Biashara bottom up, how? Ni uongo.
Another One Kenya Alliance principal Kanu's Gideon Moi was in Baringo, where he warned those underestimating his presidential bid to brace for a political duel as he would go all the way to the ballot.
Kwa safari ambayo tunaenda kubadilisha maisha ya watu.
Meanwhile, the dust in the Jubilee party kicked by the party's loss in Kiambaa is yet to settle, with Kieni MP Kanini Kega and Muranga woman rep Sabina Shege claiming they would begin a purge of those deemed to be a liability in the party next week. The duo say the purge will target the rank and file of a party's top leadership, a statement that could be directed at Secretary General Raphael Tuju and Vice Chair David Murathe.
Chama chetu cha Jubilee kuna kasoro kidogo, na wale ambao wanaharibu jina ya Jubilee, wale ambao hawajui kuongea vizuri, wanaenda wanatoa matusi. Tungetaka kuambia tutaanza operation Fagia.
Wale wako kwa ofisi kuu ya headquarter, ukiona cha mwenzako chanyolewa, tia chako maji. Tukimalizana na countess tutaenda hapo juu ili tukue na watu ambao wako na msimamo na watu ambao watasaidia rais.
Now, the man who seems is the man to watch ahead of the general elections, and that is none other than Deputy President William Ruto, has urged leaders to embrace the bottom-up economic model that is tailor-made to improve the livelihoods of the poor. While attending a church service at St. Michael of the Archangel Catholic Church in Langata, Ruto emphasized the need of being mindful of all Kenyans.
On Sunday morning, while attending a church service at the St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church in Langata, Nairobi, Deputy President William Ruto took the opportunity to respond to criticism of his proposed bottom-up economic model.
Pengine mnashangaa hii bottom-up inaanzia wapi? Hii bottom na inasumbua watu, imesumbua watu wengi sana. Watu wamechanganyikiwa vibaya sana na hii bottom-up. It is about remembering the weak.
Ruto reiterated the importance of embracing the new economic model so as to incorporate Kenyans who are disadvantaged by the current economic model.
That is the lifting of everybody so that we can together be in a nation where nobody is left behind.
Quite a narrator. Now, away from matters of politics, is that candidates who sat the Kenya Certificates of Primary Education examination last year are set to join Form 1 beginning today. And although the government has since revised the school fees in boarding schools owing to a shorter academic calendar, parents say raising the fees for their children is an uphill task due to the rising cost of living and the economic challenges occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic.
1 million pupils who sat last year's Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examination will join Form 1. This marking the first time all 15 million learners will be in school since the disruption of learning in the country by the COVID-19 pandemic last year. But while learners may be excited about moving to the next level of their basic education, parents are decrying the pain of raising school fees amid reduced incomes.
Shule nilikuwa nadaiwa 26,000. Kudaiwa 26,000 nikapata 10,000. Saizi kwa fees unastukia inahitaji 18,000. If you say 18,000 kwa sababu hii ni term 1 plus arrears, ukiona hivi kwa ukweli huyo mtoto hata akikia kwa shule au hesabu kwamba ako shule.
Richard Cherutich, a chats vendor in Kabranet, says COVID-19 has affected his business and is not able to raise school fees for his 2 children in high school.
Niko na watoto wawili wa secondary schools ambapo saizi ukiangalia hivi hali ya uchumi imeenda chini sana. Ili uweze hata kupata ya kulipa mtoto mmoja inakuwa kasi. Sababu hali ya uchumi imeenda chini. Biashara ile ninafanya ni ile biashara ya kuuza calendars.
Stakeholders in the education sector say the state of the economy may hinder many parents from being able to provide school fees for their children. While launching a 30 million shillings bursary kitty for needy students in Baringo, Governor Stanley Kiptis acknowledged the harsh economic effects of COVID-19.
Parents and guardians are facing numerous financial challenges, and the bursary kitty will go a long way in elevating their school fees burden.
The money, according to a principal in the area, will go a long way in cushioning 60% of the students' population, without which they would not have gone back to school.
About 80% of our students are from the IDPs who are displaced by the bandit and cattle rustling. And they have so many challenges as far as payment of fees is concerned.
The government has since revised school fees for boarding schools, with this year's academic calendar being 9 weeks shorter. Whereas the academic calendar is usually 39 weeks, the 2021 calendar will run for 30 weeks.
We wish all the Form 1s reporting to school today safe travels, and for the parents who are going or accompanying them, also safe travels. Remember, you are a winner. It doesn't mean wherever it is that you are going is really going to define your destiny. What you do with that opportunity is what is going to count. Safe travels. Happy starting high school. For one, I don't know if my colleagues have something to say in regard to matters of Form 1, but we'll be tackling that later. And remember, this is interactive and we value your feedback. You can reach us on Twitter at KBC Channel 1 News. My Twitter handle is at Ray Manyara. We have at Doreen Arange, at Victor Law, and at Jane Womboy. What was your experience in Form 1? Get tweeting, and our hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. Now, still keeping up with matters of COVID-19 at a time when the weekend ended with a positivity rate of 9%. However, 15 persons succumbed to the virus. Hundreds of motorists in Nairobi were on Saturday night stuck in traffic for close to 3 hours after police mounted roadblocks to apprehend those found contravening the nationwide curfew. Nairobi Regional Commander of Police Augustine Thumbi said several city residents were hard-pressed to explain why they couldn't get home before 10 p.m. Serafina Robi, more with the details.
This was the situation in most roads in Nairobi on Saturday night. Most people were caught up in traffic after the police mounted roadblocks at 10 p.m. in various roads in the city. Essential service providers were also caught up in the process as police moved to ensure everyone on the road had valid reasons to be out past 10 p.m.
Jana walitangaza na wangetuambia sasa maybe mwisho ni saa saa 4, saa 3:30, lakini saa 4 ilikuwa bado inaendelea.
Itakuwa sasa na niko na essential. Hao watu wangefanya hivi kama ni road block. Waweke line moja ile yenye waweke line moja ya watu essential wapite instead ya kuchukua njia zote wanaziblock.
Blocking the road indiscriminately without even taking into consideration those of us who have essential service.
Tunalala wapi? Unaweza lala kwa barabara.
Tuko na familia kiasi, tushafungiwa hapa hivi. Mimi natoka huko hivyo maatu hivyo. So nimefungiwa hapa hivi juu story ya curfew. Hadi mimi sielewi nini hii curfew ni samanini.
Kasarani OCPD Peter Mwanzo was at some point forced to offer his vehicle to transport some women and children to their homes. An opportunity to let an ambulance through this nallop almost resulted in an accident.
Watu watii so that we can save Kenyans. We expected yesterday that people will listen to that. But unfortunately, they took it very casually.
After hours of possession, Nairobi Regional Commander of Police Augustine Athumbi ordered the lifting of barricades, but not without a warning.
Saa hii kila mtu aondoke aende. Kesho tunaianzia saa 4 kamili, hakuna mtu atapita hapa.
On Friday, the government announced that there will be no turning back on the COVID-19 containment measures.
Kusema kuwa corona is real na fourth wave ya corona iko na watu wengi wanapata shida ya hii maneno ya corona kwa sababu ya kudharau yale mambo ambayo yamewekwa na Ministry of Health.
Politicians have been hugely indicted over the spike in COVID-19 cases, with the government coming out strongly against political rallies and public gatherings of any nature.
Now, focusing on matters security, the government has been urged to set up an anti-stock theft police camp along the borders between the counties of West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet and Baringo to address the rising cases of banditry attacks and livestock theft. In the recurring conflict in the region has derailed development and affected learning as locals are forced to migrate to safer zones.
West Pokot MP Lilian Tomitom said women and children are the victims largely affected by the unrest that have lasted for decades in the North region, noting that the security camps from both sides of the borders of the 3 counties will enhance security and curb crime.
Ukifanya disarmament Elgeyo Marakwet, fanya pia disarmament West Pokot County, tukue the same. Juzi disarmament ilifanywa sehemu ya West Pokot na watu wakapeana mabunduki sana. Lakini mambo ile ya Elgeyo Marakwet na sehemu ya Baringo baada disarmament ilifika huko na watu bado wako na hizo vitu.
Meanwhile, a section of leaders from Laikipia County are calling for the arrest of Narok Senator Ledama Olekina for allegedly inciting illegal herders to resist their planned eviction by the government from private property in the region. This comes after Senator Olekina questioned Interior CS Fred Matiang'i's move to order for the eviction of the illegal herders.
They must live like Laikipia. Hiyo tunasema na they must live like Laikipia. Na tukuje hapa kupemberezana hata kama Olekina you want to become the leader of the Maa community. You cannot become the leader of Maa community kwa kuongea mambo ambayo hayana msingi.
Elsewhere, Narok Governor Samuel Oletunai has called on communities living in the county to embrace each other and shun tribalism as the nation nears the 2022 political season. Speaking at Ilmotiok in Narok West during the burial of the late Reverend Daniel Kositany, Tunai maintained that he would like to unite all communities living in Narok before his term as governor comes to an end.
The tribe doesn't matter. That is what I want to plant in Narok. That a Kipsigis today will go anywhere in Narok, anunue shamba, aishi, and nobody cares who you are. Hii kabla yako next is Masai, the other one is Kisii, the other one is Kikuyu. Unaishi because you are Kenyan. No.
On that note, we take a quick breather, but we'll be right back with those stories that are making headlines in the last 24 hours. Now go away.
Nissan Serena ndio hii. Na unaweza kuwa wewe ndio tunapikia simu. Kodi ya Nissan Serena ni NS. Alafu kisha kwenye amount ni 50 bob. Hii Nissan Serena tunakupatia na shilingi 50.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bid yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bid yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bid ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Now that she ran off, we now have a good reason to ban her, which is good for us.
What are you doing out here? Arrest this woman right now!
Promise me 3 things right now. I can give what you want.
Do you promise?
Tim did that pristine, I swear. They went late for an instant.
Long Fei Ye, I want you to research Lord Fei's background and not miss any detail.
相思泪许的心头上，叶儿老手捂在纸上，摇影是荒凉。
De una forma diferente, de otro modo.
Don't you see that you're just prolonging the agony? All of us are hurting, Flavia. Our dad's death, Juliana, hurts me as much as all of you.
And now I know why my godmother told me that my mother was dead when they could no longer find her body.
I can imagine that being a child made it harder for you to understand what happened.
I'm so tired of pretending that I'm grieving in front of everyone.
I have to go back to Mexico. It's a good thing that the police have officially ended the search. What a hassle.
Yes. And you handled the matter about the will very well. It was timely.
I was the one who set fire to stars.
De una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente.
You're still watching KBC Channel 1. This is Good Morning Kenya. I'm Regina Manyara. We're continuing to just put you informed on what has been happening in the last 24 hours. And remember, you can get further details on our website, that is www.kbc.ca.ke. Now, let's continue looking at how COVID disruptions have changed how we know things or how we do things. Now, it has had some unprecedented effects on how we live, how we work and play. For breastfeeding mothers, the protection of infants from the deadly disease is proving to be an Herculean task due to the complexities involved. Now, Jackie Wimbiru with the details of how some mothers are throwing caution to the wind, choosing to be guided by instinct and basic hygiene when balancing between personal care and breastfeeding.
Meet Emily Wahome, a mother of 3. Emily says she began experiencing COVID-19 related symptoms and her fears were confirmed when the result turned positive.
I was still feeling so extremely fatigued and I was feeling generally unwell. I decided to go to the hospital. So when I went to the doctor told me we need to do COVID tests because that's a time when we had very high numbers. So when the COVID test was done, it was positive. The doctor advised me to isolate myself for 10 days, but I didn't manage to isolate myself from my children.
At the time, she was breastfeeding.
It was very scary because I knew that if I continue breastfeeding, I would expose my baby to COVID-19.
For Emily, the management of her COVID-19 status and the care for her baby was lessened by her expertise in nutrition.
We do not want to expose your child to the COVID, but at the same time, we know the benefits of breast milk. Breast milk contains antibodies that continue building the immunity of the baby, and therefore even during COVID-19, it's advisable for the mothers still to continue breastfeeding their babies, to continue building the immunity.
For some mothers, however, having COVID during lactation can be a tall order.
Mothers should not be scared about breastfeeding because there's no evidence to show that actually breast milk will contain the virus. They just need to observe the COVID-19 rules of washing their hands, keeping personal hygiene, and wearing their mask as much as possible.
Esther Kwamboka says coronavirus has been a challenge as a mother is forced to care for herself and at the same time ensure that her baby does not contract the disease and still breastfeed exclusively.
The antibodies from the mother, who is already suffering from COVID, are going to be passed on to the child who is through the breast milk. And so that is going to be passive immunity that is going to be passed into the child, because then the antibodies are going to start acting like immediately within the child. So there's not been any evidence that COVID is spread through breast milk, and there's not been any evidence that if a mother actually breastfeeds and she masks up and she does all the hygiene practices, that she's going to transmit it to her baby.
Emily says a healthy support system comes in handy during such difficult times.
If a lady is stressed, if a woman is stressed during breastfeeding, that is one of the things that impact or bring the milk supply down. So she needs to be emotionally prepared for it. She needs to be given support. If she is stressed, she needs to be cared for so that she can be able to continue breastfeeding. Postpartum depression most of the time occurs when ladies do not get enough support.
Once she knows that the breast milk is not going to be transmitted through the COVID is not going to be transmitted to her baby through the breast milk, then she's going to be confident and she'll stop worrying. Once she knows that the antibodies in her body are actually going to be transferred into the baby and it's going to give the child passive immunity, then that is also going to help her gain confidence and stop worrying too much about the baby.
Though there has been a push to have employers designate areas within their workplaces for breastfeeding, the COVID-19 pandemic presents a major challenge.
I'd like to appeal to the employers is that this space is very necessary. If we want a productive mother, then we need to make her comfortable.
Kenya is seeking to create awareness among new parents and promote infant health through a week-long breastfeeding campaign dubbed Protect Breastfeeding, a Shared Responsibility.
Now, for 16 years Santa Lucy Fungaro has been forced to battle an ailment and still ensure that higher education continues uninterrupted. The 21-year-old student at Makerere University was in 2005 diagnosed with a condition known as dermatitis, an uncommon inflammatory disease marked by muscle weaknesses and a distinctive skin rash. She spoke to a reporter, Wambui Otiende, on her painful journey of creating awareness about the condition.
The only thing you're left with, because you have no option in life.
Santa Lucy Fungaro is fighting a war that is chipping away her resolve piece by piece. Muscle weakness, multiple skin disorders, vitiligo, lung infection, and random calcinosis.
And I'm also a patient of dermatomyositis, which is an autoimmune skin condition that affects the skin, the muscles, the tissues, and the nerves. In Uganda, I am the second medically registered case since 1954.
Santa, a final year student at the Makerere University, says the last 16 years have been hell on earth.
But then it gets itchy under sun. At times I turn purplish or even pinkish or even reddish due to the fact that the sun affects me and my immunity is stronger than my body.
Dermatomyositis usually occurs in adults from the late 40s to early 60s, but can also occur in children. Females are most affected. She recently launched a campaign to create awareness about her condition.
I believe there are cases like me in the country, but because the condition is rare, people tend to look at it as witchcraft or maybe look at you as a curse or a social outcast.
Santa says she needs 7 million shillings to undergo surgery to clear the calcinitis.
So the estimate I was given from Aga Khan for everything was about 7 million, but they told me it could go more or it could come less.
She hopes that treatment can accord her some much needed strength to help others who are also battling the condition.
Or I could go into theatre and come out paralyzed, but I want to choose that I am going into theatre and come out alive.
Financial donations can be sent to her M-Pesa number 0790602063. 0790602063.
Her there. You can get further details on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. Now to some good news is that Form 4 leavers of Lagdera sub-county wishing to undertake technical courses will no longer need to travel 176 kilometers to Garissa town after the national government funded the construction of a technical and vocational education and training center in the area. Now, the Lagdera TVET Center that was commissioned in 2016 at a cost of 50 million shillings has been completed and expects to receive its first batch of students next month.
Speaking after assessing the institution, accompanied by members of the County Development Implementation Coordination Committee, Garissa County Commissioner Boaz Cherutich urged young people in the area to take advantage and apply for technical courses to be offered at the institution.
For example, in Garissa, we don't have masons, we don't have plumbers, we don't have electricians and all those skills. So we want our youth to take advantage so that they can come and enroll here, acquire those skills so that they can be competitive.
According to the school principal, Abdul Saman, the TVET College will admit 50 students in September for technical courses, including plumbing, electrical and mechanical engineering, building and civil engineering, among others.
We expect around 50 students this season. And also we expect a lot of facilities to be brought here. So we have masonry, we have plumbing, we have electricians, electricity, and also we have mechanical engineering.
Lagdera Technical and Vocational Education and Training is the first and only technical institution in the area.
Crossing over to the sporting arena and focusing on the international sporting event of the year, the Olympics, the Tokyo Olympics 2020. Now, Kenya's Faith Kipyegon, Edna Jebitok and Winnie Chebet qualified for the semi-finals of the women's 1500 meters race after coming through their respective qualifying rounds at the Olympic Games. Now, Edna Jebitok sailed through the semis despite finishing 12th after a fall, and Jebitok was included in the semi-finals after an appeal by Team Kenya. The qualifying round was clinched by world champion Dutch Sifan Hassan, who clocked 4.0517 as Jessica Hull of Australia finished second. USA Perea St. Pierre was third. Now this afternoon, Abraham Kibiwot and Benjamin Keegan ran in the 3,000 meter steeplechase final, while Helen Obiri, Lilian Kasait and Agnes Tirop will be in the women's 5,000 meters final. The Malkia strikers face Brazil in their group final A. that is Group A match at 3:45 p.m. We'll be keeping tabs on what is happening in Tokyo, and you can get further details on our website. Now, still keeping up with matters sports is that the Football Kenya Federation has deducted AFC Leopards and Gor Mahia 3 points each for boycotting the Mashemeji Derby that was slated for Saturday at the Thika Stadium. At the same time, the two clubs have been fined 6 million and 4 million shillings respectively. Gor and Leopards opted to play a friendly at Camp Toyoyo grounds, citing non-payment of the Betway Cup prizes and allowances.
Defending champions Gor Mahia and AFC Leopards boycotted the Mashemeji Derby that was slated for Saturday at Thika Stadium and instead opted to play a friendly at Camp Toyoyo ground, citing non-payments of the Betway Cup prizes and allowances. Following their actions, the two clubs have been deducted 3 points each and a fine of 6 million and 4 million shillings respectively.
Kukosa kuwa na pesa haiwezi kuwa reason ya kukosa kwenda mechi. It's very clear in football regulations that you cannot give a reason that hukuwa na pesa ndo maana hukuenda mechi.
The move by the Football Federation is expected to face mixed reactions because it involves two clubs with a very rich football history. Meanwhile, FKF President Nick Mwendo took time to warn the referees who have been accused of involving themselves in match fixing.
Mimi si regulate betting. Mimi na regulate football. Kile naweza fanya ni kushika hao marefari watano. Sasa tumewashika na tumewatoa.
Daniel Mwendwa, Sports.
Indeed, I can see you've been sending in your tweets as well as questions. Someone is asking me, Regina, who is distracting you that you can't even read out the 1500 meters? I'm like, well, we keep on checking the feedback and we are not as perfect as we look, but we try to deliver as we can. Now, still keeping up with matters sports is Margaret Warungongo, garnered 46 points to win the 6th edition of the Seagulls Golf Tournament at the Thika Greens Golf Resort. Flying Doctors Medical Dr. Joseph Lalo said the tournament was aimed at highlighting the importance of households having emergency medical evacuation services. The tournament attracted 250 golfers and was sponsored by Amref Flying Doctors.
We are proud to be associated with golfers, and our Maisha product is a key, and we feel that it is a very important interface for active and mobile young people as well as old people.
Well, that brings a cap to the news as we had prepared for you. Remember, you can check out our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke for further details in regarding to stories that we have already captured for you. And remember, we welcome your feedback in regard to what you need to have KBC Channel 1 focus on or cover for you. We are a trusted viewer, and more or less we're here because of you. That brings a cap to the news, but we are not done yet. We want to sample so much more regarding to what is making news. So do keep it right here. But for now, we head to the road.
All right, so let's just look at that route which I had promised earlier, which is going to be your focus this morning, and I'll be telling you all why we're focusing on this road. But right now, just a quick look on the traffic flow, try to see how that area is looking like. We are looking at Mbagathi Way. The road begins from the City Moche roundabout, going all the way up to the Timor roundabout. In fact, that is just the stretch of Mbagathi Way, and around the roundabout, not so bad in this morning hour. A bit of traffic there, but altogether manageable kind of traffic, hence that orange color. So it simply means if you're coming from areas around Langata Road, intending to use Mbagathi Way as your alternative route, this is the best time for you to do that. If at all you're coming from areas also around Ngong Road, the estates there, perhaps coming to the city center, or even as you leave Ngong Road as well, not so bad in terms of traffic. So clearly also it is the best time for you to perhaps leave your houses if at all you're coming to the city center. And also if you're leaving CBD, perhaps your workstation or any kind of activities around areas of Ngong Road or even Langata Road, still the best time for you to leave your houses right now. In as much as there's a bit of traffic, not so much of the heavy kind of traffic, given the fact that also, I mean, being a Monday, one of those those busy days, and not forgetting the fact that it is also schools open day. So clearly that could be one of the reasons why we perhaps expect to see every kind of traffic on most of our roads, especially the better part of this week and today, to be specific. But at least for now, manageable kind of traffic all through these areas. As I mentioned, nothing is changing. So again, just a swift moving of vehicles there, coming all the way to still Valley Road roundabout as you leave areas of Agwix Codec. Also not so bad, moving at a swift pace. Just as you near the roundabout is where things are getting a bit thick, but still altogether manageable kind of traffic. This continues all the way past the roundabout as you come to the city center via Valley Road, as you head over to Kenyatta Avenue, and also as you leave those areas, still coming to these places which you're focusing on, again moving at a very, very swift pace. In fact, around the roundabout, this is just as you branch off to Mbagathi, which is our focus this morning, just past that roundabout, coming all the way. In fact, on that particular lane, as you head over to Mbagathi Way, coming all the way to Langata Road, and also as you get to branch off from that specific roundabout, heading all the way to City Center via the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, and also via the Nyayo Stadium coming to Mombasa Road on that section, moving at a very, very fast pace, no traffic at all, given the fact that there's still some ongoing roadworks, especially around the Timor roundabout in regards to that overpass and underpass that is being constructed there. So ultimately, because of that, we perhaps expect to see heavy kind of traffic, but there's none of that, moving at a very, very fast pace. Also, what that simply means is we do not need to look at any alternative routes. And yes, this is going to be our focus this morning. Like I mentioned, this is actually Mbagathi Way, and I'll be telling you why, all about this particular project, how long it took, and also it being opened up to the public. We're at least already seeing that in terms of traffic, not so bad, but also we'll continue to track the progress therein, try to see how all this is affecting the traffic flow.
There you go. Now that is how our major roads are looking this morning. Remember, if you're a guardian or a parent who is taking their children or their child to high school, you need to be on the road because it's bound to be very heavy as the day progresses. Remember, we are live and we'll be keeping you updated on what is happening on our major roads there. So if you haven't left the comfort of your home, this would be an ideal time to actually step out and get going. Remember, safe journey. Now we want to look at what has been captured by various dailies this morning. I have a copy of the Standard with me this morning, so let me just give you a sneak peek of what has been given precedence in this particular edition. We have matters of politics as well as COVID. There, with politics taking the center stage, with a header there that says Raila's shadow in Mudavadi and Kalonzo's plan. This is in regard to what is happening with NASA there, where the former NASA leaders have moved on and are already working on a coalition agreement within the One Kenya Alliance, even as pressure is mounting from other leaders, including President Uhuru Kenyatta, and with asking them basically to try and have a workable plan with the ODM leader there to form a formidable team that will face Ruto in the next year polls. This is one of the stories that has been given precedence, actually the big read on this particular daily this morning. And also we have a special report looking at what is happening across the region, now focusing on matters in Uganda. The plight of the Ugandan girls there is that fear that plagues Uganda girls in the city dark alleys there. So a majority of the girls are aged below the age of 18 and get sold at Arapai market in Uganda for the highest bidder before finding their way in Nairobi. Quite a deplorable state of affairs there. can get a read on that or the further details. Then also still in Uganda is that now our neighbor there has received COVID jabs from China at a time that also this comes just barely a few hours or a day or so before we received our another batch of the AstraZeneca vaccine in the country. So we also have the issue of matters of COVID fears as Form 1s report to school. That's what this particular daily has given precedent on its front page.
Now let's have a quick look at quite busy, but nonetheless we start with those stories that are here on the header. Matters concerning COVID-19 as the world risks losing the gains that we have made against the fight when it comes to the fight against COVID-19, because looking at what the World Health Organization had to say is that the cases have increased by 80% across the world. A few other variants have been detected, and two of the ones that are ravaging people the most are the Delta variant and the Lambda variant. We'll be giving you details in a bit. The main story on the front page of the Daily Nation, the ultimate kingmaker. Yes, there we go. Picture therein, we have Musalia Mudavadi and Kalonzo Musyoka. And just looking at this political game, the One Kenya Alliance featuring Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula and Gideon Moi have been termed as a third force to reckon with after Raila Odinga and Deputy President William Ruto. And therein comes the question as to whether they have the power to also make up the swing vote. That story has been captured in great detail here. We'll be coming to it in a bit. But then again, matters concerning our Form 1 students who will be joining secondary school today. But here they focus on the bursary wars that so many parents are struggling with, because there has been a lot of complaint and concern that there's so many deserving students that were left out of this bursary fund scheme, and most of them have had to resort to going to day schools that they had not chosen, or others have been forced to repeat class 8. And in extreme cases, some have had to drop out of school altogether because of the extra finances that is required for them to join school. And finally, on some sports, Omanyala sprints his way to fame as Ferdinand yesterday made many Kenyans happy when he made history as the first Kenyan to reach the 100-meter semi-finals at the Olympics in Japan. We have these details and so much more coming on as we continue with In the Headlines. Vic.
Right, and on the front page of the Star newspaper, big parties to lose, small ones gain in new cash bill. Big parties lose, small ones gain in new cash bill. Now, proposed law removed stringent funding eligibility threshold. Now, parties also 70 outfits, that is according to the parties, that parties also required to meet the 2/3 gender rule. That is what's making the front page of the Star newspaper. And still on the Star, there's that monthly upkeep that is needed. Woman sues House of Grace Bishop for child maintenance. Woman sues House of Grace Bishop for child maintenance. I will give you more details on that particular story. But ODM leader Raila Odinga says that now it is time for compulsory universal healthcare. Now, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has vouched for a compulsory universal health insurance cover for all Kenyans. Now, the ODM leader said that the COVID-19 pandemic has shown Kenya the need to have access to quality and reliable healthcare. That is according to Honorable Raila Odinga. And again, still on the Star front page there, Nairobi hospitals expand ICUs amidst rising COVID-19 cases. The government last week said that most of the hospitals in the city here are currently overstrained and lack some of the HDU or even ICU beds. And now there's another wave of COVID-19 that is coming up, but government says that most of the hospitals within the county are currently overstretched. So all that is needed is for everyone to take care. All right. So blow to big parties in new cash bill. Now, small political parties could be headed for a windfall under a proposed law that would edge out big names from exclusive control of billions of shillings of parties' cash. Now, the bill would provide that parties get a share of the political parties fund based on the number of candidates from special interest groups elected in the election preceding the share out. Now, the Political Parties Amendment Bill 2021 seeks to remove the stringent funding eligibility threshold that has seen small parties miss out on cash. This is one of the topics that we will be discussing the next hour with our political analyst here in the show. Doreen.
All right, coming to the front page of the People's Daily, there's of course plenty more in regards to what the paper has covered this morning, the issue to do with schools reopening and perhaps what is actually the biggest fear for parents. This is after 1 million students joined Form 1 amid COVID-19 fears. In fact, this story has been well cut out from page 2 all through 4, just showing the fear that parents have in regards to their children resuming school. And also coming to churches, this is after there was relief and as churches resume service, especially in the western and the Nyanza part of the country, and again also after the curfew was sort of lifted or at least returned back to 4 to 10 p.m. there. So I'll be telling you how this has been unfolding in those parts of the country. And again, when it comes to matters sports, it was too close yet too far for Omanyala. Again, well cut out from page 6 through 9 of the PD. So clearly just showing how the writer has really well highlighted the story of this athlete and just how it was too close yet too far. And of course, politics never misses out, especially on a Monday. And Uhuru men out to reunite the NASA force. So what next when it comes to this political parties, knowing fully well that when you go to the elections, next elections, we usually don't miss new formations or new parties being formed therein. So of course we'll be coming to the details in just a short while. For now, we take a very short break. When we return, the details of how the papers are looking like this morning.
Now we take a short breather. We'll be right back.
Waomba wenzangu, kama vile mimi ufanya, weka pesa yako kwa panga account juu KDIC imekuhakikishia iko safe. Weka kitu kwa panga.
Be sure, check out for a KDIC sticker in your banking hall. KDIC, protecting your deposits.
Ala, Nissan Serena ndio hii, na unaweza kuwa wewe ndio tunapikia simu. Kodi ya Nissan Serena ni NS, alafu kisha kwenye amount ni 50 bob. Hii Nissan Serena tunakupatia na shilingi 50.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill, kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account, weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bidi yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano, TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bidi yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bidi ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Ni kitu gani ulimwambia Maya mpaka yupo so convinced kwamba utakuja kuzungumza na babake?
Birthday ya Badi si muhimu kwako, sio?
Jamani mume wangu, mimi sijasema hivyo.
Mimi leo niko tayari kutoroka. Vipi ule mpango?
Pe jina lako kijana.
Ujui jina la baba wa mtoto mtarajiwa?
Like spending my money, baby.
Na kama hutaki mimi nitumie, wataka nani nitumie?
Now that she ran off, we now have a good reason to ban her, which is good for us.
What are you doing out here? Arrest this woman right now!
Promise me 3 things right now. I can give what you want.
Do you promise?
Tim did that, Prince King. I swear they went late for an instant.
Long Fei Ye, I want you to research Lord Fei's background and not miss any detail.
相思泪许的心头上，叶儿老手舞在纸上，摇影是荒凉。
Welcome back to the program. This is still Good Morning Kenya, continuing to unpack for you how the papers are looking like this morning. And let's just start with that story of COVID-19 and how the churches are doing, especially in the western and Nyanza part of the country, where churches in the Lake region now resume physical worship. And this is actually the churches in that area resumed congregational worship over the weekend after the government lifted the ban that had been imposed as part of COVID-19 containment measures. So the places of worship in the 13 counties under Lake Region Economic Bloc held their first services after weeks of suspension, and most churches at least opened doors for worshippers, even though a low attendance was witnessed in a majority of these churches. So also a spot check established that most places of worship had observed COVID-19 containment measures, including ensuring 1/3 capacity and keeping physical distance, of course, as well as washing of hands. So even that is happening in that area. At least as of yesterday, Kenya recorded 467 new COVID-19 positive cases, seeing the positivity rate drop to 9% from 13% since Friday, when the CS gave that announcement. Also during his address on Friday, he announced that the curfew was still on for 30 days, and this is from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. And this again is the nationwide curfew there. So in as much as perhaps the positivity rate has reduced a bit, it still means that we are not yet out of the woods, and we still need to continue following up the containment measures as given by the government. Ray.
Now to go to those details, there's a report here covered by the Standard, quite a deplorable state in which these trafficked young girls from Uganda find themselves. I just want to highlight some of the stories here to just look at, when it comes to modern day slavery, we read about history when it comes to slavery, the transatlantic trade and such, but now modern slavery is just happening at our backyard and our very streets here. Now, according to this special report, is that a group of girls, the number being around 102 girls, have been rescued so far. However, with the issue of the COVID-19 situation and the disruption there, recruiters and traffickers have changed their tactics and are now targeting young people through online platforms and social media. This is following the restrictions of movement brought about by COVID-19. For instance, in Kenya, the Counter Trafficking Persons Act prescribes penalties of up to 30 years to life imprisonment over at least 30 million for both perpetrators. However, the law requires that states prove beyond doubt that the suspects trafficked the victims, which requires cross-border cooperation, and this is not usually available. This particular piece tells about girls who are calling the Isili dump site home. They were brought to Nairobi, basically sold to traffickers, then forced to beg on the streets in Uganda before making their way to Nairobi, in just trying to look for some way to just live, or rather meet their daily basic needs. But now it's turned out someone was making a living out of their suffering. They call the Isili dump site home. A majority of them have been raped. They are raising children out of rape, and there's really nothing much that is being done to, change their narrative. This is a report, a special report that has been captured in the Standard this morning. You can actually read that and also get a report that has great statistics in regards to modern slavery, prepared by the Eastern African Child Rights Network, that is out to just stop trafficking, or rather child trafficking or trafficking in Kenya, as well as Traffic Kenya and Freedom Collaborative, where that indicates that there are 3,000 Karamojong workers in Nairobi alone, and most of them are in Isili, Majengo, Pumwani, Pangani and Shauri Moyo. This is quite a heart-wrenching story here. If I can just read an excerpt of one of the girls who chose to go by the name of Joyce. She's 17 and 6 months pregnant. She says, since I got pregnant, the guy does not want to be associated with me. We just met on the streets and he was taking care of me. But when I told him I was pregnant, he told me to get an abortion. However, I was not ready to take the risk. I did not know what I would do, or rather what it would do to me after I gave birth. Now, this is a situation that Joyce shares with the majority of the girls in that particular group, with one Mary saying that one girl was just raped here, as we all witnessed, but what could we do? We just leave them to finish with her for fear of being attacked ourselves, and we brought her some water so that she could wash herself, and then we went back to sleep. That's just an excerpt of this particular special report that has been captured by the Standard this morning, just highlighting the plight of these trafficked ladies there from the age of as young as 10, 18 and 25, who currently find themselves destitute because they sought to come fend for their families. Read the report, and if there's anything that you can do, well, get in touch with that particular scribe. Jane, I don't know what you have to say in regard to that matter.
It's really heartbreaking when we get to hear all these stories on a daily basis. And you know, there were stats that were put up a while back that barely, I don't know, it was how many minutes goes by if without a child being facing any form of violence, be it physical, sexual, psychological, emotional, in minutes across the world. And now abduction cases have just been on a constant rise through and through. We need to do better as a people. And my question always goes back, why are we turning all this violence against children?
I think because
why?
At this particular point, people always look for the weaker spot. When I have a problem with you, Doreen or Regina, somebody might be tempted to turn his or her energy into that weaker or less active object. In this case, it's about kids. For example, when there is a domestic violence, a domestic squabble in a family, what usually happens is that when a husband or a wife feels that they cannot confront each other, so how do you pour out your anger? You go for the less active object. Hapo tunasikia mtu amevuja masahani, you break down everything in the house.
That exact situation actually happened last week on the papers. The lady who strangled 2 of her children because she had a disagreement with the husband, and she was going for the 5-month-old, but until the 5-month was screaming his lungs out, that's when she stopped.
She said that she realized she was doing a mistake. And you see, the story had it that they had problems
with the husband. So probably she realized that she was not going to win the case against the husband. So how was she going to, to vent her anger to the less active kids? She killed the kids without 4 years and 2 years.
Exactly, without any purpose, without any reason. And that usually happens.
It's still very wrong. And you see, some would even say that I did that so that they could hear me, or I did that so that they could stop, or we could stop this argument, which is very manipulative also when you think about it. There's no way or no time when kids need to be, or kids can be a scapegoat. If there are issues in the family, perhaps you and your spouse, that is just where you go sort out the problem. Because also, again, look at it this way. When you kill that child, what do you stand to benefit? Has it solved any problem? None whatsoever.
It doesn't solve any problem. Not at all, not at all. All right, so there is a discussion here, ladies. DP Ruto, bottom-up model to bridge gap between rich and poor. We've had Kenyans making fun out of this model, but right now, let me just put it this way. The DP Ruto says that the model is about to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. From the business perspective, Regina, you'll get in here. But Nyanza politicians and professionals roll out public hearings on Hustler's blueprint, and the bottom-up economic model proposed by the United Democratic Alliance will narrow the gap between the rich and the poor. That's according to Deputy President William Ruto. And yesterday in church service said that, what are confused? People are confused. People are talking about, this and that. Some people say trickle-down model. Regina, from economic perspective, what do you make out of this?
Well, I see what you have done.
To ask you this one.
basically want you to explain to us what this bottom-up is all about.
I do not want to be caught in a catch-22 of sorts. Remember what happened to that lady politician who couldn't quite, just elaborate or rather even give details about what this strategy is all about.
And a disclaimer, you don't belong to any political party on this discussion, on this particular one.
But you basically want her to explain in simple terms what she understands from bottom-up economy.
Regina, what is bottom-up?
I'm not going to be put in this situation.
Yes.
Bottom-up is very clear for anyone who wants to see. And I want to borrow what Deputy President William Ruto in this particular report that we ran this morning, what he said at the Langata Church. He said this is a concept that looks at lifting the one who lives below the poverty line to a point where they can actually, attain their basics. And I want to go with that. And I'm paraphrasing what Deputy President William Ruto said.
Yes.
How you take and what you do with that information is entirely up to you, Doreen and Victor, because I'm seeing you putting me on the tight spot. And right now, this conversation, exactly what is bottom up? Do you understand this? I mean, this is actually, every time we are working towards the general election, we already have connotations, slogans, left, right, and center. Models. This is something that has always been here. Now the difference is now we have the hustler movement. We went tanga. There's so much kieleweke. There's so much going up now. What is in, or rather what is hip, is bottom up.
But
Ray,
Vic, let me just jump in on that a bit. And Ray, I'm with you on that, because you see the way you're saying, also borrowing from what the DP said, I think the biggest question that Kenyans have is, in as much as you're saying it's all about lifting that common mwananchi from where they are to somewhere up, it is in how are you planning to do it. It's okay, the concept perhaps may be there, it's all lifting, but the question is how. And I think that's what a good number of Kenyans really want to understand. That's why there's a lot of perhaps misunderstanding between what is the trickle down, what is really the bottom-up economy.
The question is how.
The question is how, because it's good enough to lift me as a common Kenya, but how are you planning to do it? You see, that's the question.
Okay, Doreen, I have a question for the three of you, starting with you, Jane. Jane, do you understand what bottom-up economy is all about? Yes or no?
No. Before I answer that, before we answer that, just a rejoinder to what you guys were having before this question. What has always been the purpose of having a government in any country? And as per that definition that we have gotten, is to empower the common mwananchi who are living below the dollar.
Yes.
How is that a new concept?
Okay.
How is that a new concept?
That a new concept?
The new concept should come in the how, because the way you're saying, perhaps it has been there all this while.
That has been the purpose of any government, to uplift the people.
But the implementation is
the challenge.
What's been lacking. Okay, Doreen, do you understand what?
Yes, I do understand.
You do. Thank you, Jane. What about you, Doreen?
Of course I do.
And Jane?
Yes, I do.
No. Regina?
Regina already explained to us, so I think she does.
All right. So the thing is,
I'm sipping my,
your coffee. So the thing is, most Kenyans have gone to school. We have basic education. So we can assume that almost everyone understands what bottom-up economy is all about. The only thing is that Kenyans are becoming cheeky and naughty. Simple. We understand what bottom-up economy is. You've just said it's about helping and uplifting the lives of that common mwananchi, that person who lives below $1 a day. Okay? How many people live below $1 a day? Wengi sana. Cameraman
hey, picture.
says that he lives under $1 a day. We love to investigate that. And on that note, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi says that bottom-up model too academic. He said that ANC leaders has criticized Deputy President William Ruto's bottom-up economic model, saying that it's too academic and impractical to implement. Now, it means that this model has been there all along, but the problem is the implementation. When you look at every government, whenever they come into power, what is their role purpose? First is to uplift, to make sure that the economy is stable of any particular country. Let's come back home. The economy is stable. You make sure that every coin counts, fight corruption, and etc., etc. So we can assume that it's been there, but now what's been lacking all through is the implementation. And now that's what Deputy President William Ruto says, that he has that kind of, the vision to implement this bottom-up economy model that has been in existence. I don't know what's your thought. That is just my view.
Victor,
yes,
let's put
Regina.
it this way. I think also as a media we have a role to play when it comes to civic education.
Absolutely.
Because this is not a favor that our leaders owe us. They do not owe us a good economy. They do not owe us a good environment to do business. Actually, that is our right. That is what they're supposed to do. Servant leadership. We have employed them, elected them to do that. So it's not a favor. It is not a favor that they owe us. They have to do it. Whether
Regina,
they call it bottom up, up down, whatever they call it,
exactly.
let them deliver.
You are absolutely right.
Yeah,
somebody outside there thinks that our lives depend on the politicians. No.
Actually,
there are laws.
Actually,
in this
the
country.
Politicians depend on us, because look at it this way.
Yeah.
The taxpayer.
We are the taxpayers, right? We pay their wages. Right now, we are talking about a ballooning wage bill. So we are the employers. Wanjiko is the employer. So if we did civic education and a majority of Wanjiko got in, or rather got into the program to understand that no one owes you a favor. This is a duty, an obligation by the role that you have given them, by electing them to be our leaders.
Tell Jen.
They need to do X, Y, Z, and not always a tool of campaigns every time we're going for the general elections. Then things would change.
Yeah, well said, Regina. And I think
even
as the media, in ways that we need to perhaps put our leaders accountable, I'm still insisting on that part of perhaps how, because the way, Vic, you're asking us if we understand the bottom-up economy, yes, perhaps you could be understanding how that works and even what it means. But does that Kenyan who perhaps is going to be voting next year really understands what that is? And yes, in as much as this has been there, the way Wamboy has put it, that if governments come into place, this has actually been there. But the question again is, how are they going to do it differently? Because if it's something that has been there, then perhaps if it has to make a difference and make sense, it's all in the how you're going to do it differently this time. For me as a Kenyan to feel that actually, this is really the bottom-up economy that you're talking about as a leader.
I think it was you, Vic, last week we were just asking, the difference between a political strategist and a political analyst, and how their work just intertwines. And this is when you can clearly see their work, because it's nothing new. Government has to ensure that the people are progressing. Bottom-up economy, up, down, sideways, however it must be. But then again, as Ray, you've rightfully put it, when we are getting closer and closer to the general elections, slogans come up. There is an analyst who sat down, analyzed historical trends, and knew when you're in this space, you need to come up with something that seems reinvented, something new, something grand. And a political strategist comes in and says, Indo strategy tutafuata. Leta hii slogan, iite hivi, silikuwa inaitwa hivi. Remove this word, put this word there, voila. Mesmerize the people. So it's just another political strategy, honestly.
And on that note, Musalia Mudavadi said that, the economic challenges require proper identification, followed by the enactment of practical policy changes to address them. So we'll have a lot. Last election we had NASA. We also had NASA how, NASA this, NASA that. It's dead now, and they're still mulling for more. Let's wait and see how these ones will turn out. Ladies, hospital to pay woman 2 million shillings for testing HIV without consent. Let's discuss that in the next one, but I don't know what you have, Jane.
I'd like to just tie this particular piece here with, of course, medical standing, with what Doreen you had touched on COVID-19. As World Health has come out to say that we could be losing the gains that we have made as a global population in the fight against COVID-19. As per the latest report, they have noted an increase of about 80% over the past 4 weeks in most parts of the globe. And arguably, that is actually very true, because we also did see our health CS sounding the alarm on the rising cases of COVID-19 in our country. But in brief, there are a few new variants that have been detected across the world. And so far, the Delta and the Lambda variant are causing this global surge of infections. Now, we've heard about the Delta variant, but the Lambda variant is said to have originated from Peru and has so far been reported in 28 countries, and the hospitality rate is over 80% of those who contracted this particular virus. Looking at those other mutated variants that have been detected, at least in the African space, we have the Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and the Delta variant, which has been detected in 132 countries, and it is the dominant variant in these particular countries, more so in the Middle East and Africa. So when we see the minister, the CS rather, for health coming out and addressing the population when it comes to our vigilance, because again, as in, it seems
that this virus is mutating.
It's getting smarter.
It's getting smarter. The moment you suppress the other one, another one also comes up. It's all actually, Mutahi Kagwe CS said last week that it's all about your personal honors, responsibility. It's an unseen kind of a ghost.
And they've also indicated that there's a percentage, about 15% across the continent, of those who have been vaccinated have also contracted the virus.
So vaccination is not in any way protection per se.
Yeah. So it's all about being careful. It's all about being careful. Regina, it's about medical negligence and hospital to pay 2 million shillings for testing HIV without consent.
I totally agree.
Without consent. And somebody said...
I totally agree that the hospital has been charged to pay that. That's a breach of privacy in every sense of the word. Let's not even go to HIV. Let's even come to counseling. You know, when you seek therapy, counseling and such, there's a document that you signed. Yes, that says that this is confidential. Actually, a medical report is confidential.
It's confidential?
Yes. A medical report is confidential.
Just like us here in the
when
media.
you're even getting into some line of work, the terms and conditions that you receive from the HR office, these are the thin lines that you have to read through. Because there's some organizations that say that if on demand, they can request for a medical report from you if X, Y, Z happens. Let me give you a particular case of a student that I very well know. So it's one of the tertiary institutions that we have in the country. So apparently there was a scuffle between the security guards and this particular student. And they claimed that the person was unruly. So because they did not like his manner of dress and how he wore his hair, he had dreadlocks on.
Yeah.
And the next thing, they sent this student home and also demanded disciplinary action be taken against him. In that letter that they sent, they said that they want a medical report. And they went and specified it that they want a drug test report. Are you getting?
But basically, it's all...
No, hold on.
Yeah.
When you get into an institution, there's something called a code of conduct, right? The same way when you go to a hospital, it is doctor-client confidentiality, right?
Exactly. That also applies to us even in the media. Because
why did they think they would test this lady
this is it
for
Regina,
HIV without her consent?
The woman, the story says, the woman had initially been awarded 900,000 shillings by a tribunal by Justice Hedwig Ongudi in increased the fine. Now, the hospital was charged or was fined 2 million shillings for conducting HIV test on a woman without her consent. The question is, there is this particular trend on social media. Most of these photographers go to, these joints, restaurants, clubs, and take photos of you and put them on social media to advertise a certain DJ or a certain club, you know, and on that particular point, you have got brands of, you know, alcoholic drinks on the table and what have you. Just to ask a question, do you know, you, as that person who appears on a photograph without your consent, do you know how much you're worth right now if you're to sue someone?
Yeah, unfortunately, a majority of Kenyans don't know that.
And they think it's fun, by the way. For
someone to take a photo of you anywhere, they have to seek your consent.
Exactly. That's why even in government institutions, you're not even supposed to take even a picture of a building. Take a picture of... Exactly.
But in this particular case, I would want to know the details, Victor.
Yeah.
Because I'd want to know what instituted or necessitated this hospital to do, or rather carry out, that HIV test on a patient without her consent. And this is where I was coming.
Yeah.
There are some rogue institutions who also work with rogue employers or even rogue individuals. Let's give an example. And I'm saying maybe the employer wanted to know the status, her status, or a spouse wanted to know her status.
The story says that...
Or the family wants to know her status. There are always those people who are always into other people's businesses. But now, unfortunately, for the hospital, they should have stand
now let me answer you according to the judge. He said that a test like that of HIV cannot be lumped with other tests and assumed to have been consented to. If I go to the hospital to test for malaria, typhoid, whichever the ailment it could be, the judge said a test like HIV, because we all know what goes through that.
Yes.
It's counseling after counseling after counseling, and it has to come from you. There's something that has to be driven, or something that drives you to go for that test. You know?
It's the same way.
It
there are
needs
certain
prayer,
employers,
actually.
house helps. House helps are taken through HIV tests unknowingly. Yes. What we want to refer as domestic managers. Some employers out here, they pretend, oh, I want you to get an NHIF, so let's go for a test XYZ. But therein, they talk to the doctor in the room or the lab tech and tell them, by the way, when you're drawing blood, I want you to check for pregnancy, HIV, all that. That is a breach of privacy.
You know, this whole conversation about consent goes back to even how we are brought up. You know, many a times, this is another article that I came across, just looking at how we even teach our children about consent. Take it, for example, you're playing with a child, you're tickling them, and they tell you, stop. How often do you stop? Sasa ndo naongezanga mioto. You tickle them more and more and more. And by that, you do that over and over and over and over again. They will come to understand that no sometimes doesn't really mean no, because you as a person who is supposed to be bigger than them and understand consent is not even showing them that when they say no, it means no.
Absolutely.
Or when they say yes, it means yes. So consent is an area that I feel is very blurry for many people.
Yeah.
We don't understand the different forms and ways that consent presents itself.
The same way our director usually say, time is up.
And we consent to it.
We consent to it, and we say, go on a break. We go on a break.
We consent and we agree to go on a break.
We consent to the break.
Consent to the...
Nissan Serena ndio hii, na unaweza kuwa wewe ndio tunapikia simu. Kodi ya Nissan Serena ni NS. alafu kisha kwenye amount ni 50 bob. Hii Nissan Serena tunakupatia na shilingi 50.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bidi yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bidi yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bidi ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Get the VIP access to the best shows on KBC Channel 1. We have something different, something special to spice you up. Get ready for new, exciting and captivating dramas. Movies.
I love the smell.
Comedy.
I went to the Popos. Huh?
Drama.
Did he assault the Queen in my house, in my presence?
News, sports and so much more. Do the things that make you happy on KBC Channel 1.
Kupata Zaburi 18 mstari wa pili, dial *811 *817#. Mwenyezi Mungu ni mwamba wangu, ngome yangu na mkombozi wangu. Mungu wangu, mwamba wangu ninayemkimbilia ninapohitaji kuwa salama. Zaburi 18 mstari wa pili. Zaburi 18 mstari wa pili, dial *811 *817#. *811 *817#.
And at 10 minutes past 8 a.m., time for our second traffic link before we begin with the interviews. And let me just show you the progress of how this particular footbridge looked like from when the closure actually started. This was around perhaps October or September, if my memory serves me correct, when the footbridge was closed just for the purpose of demolition of this place, of this area. This is actually how the Mbagathi Way footbridge looked like. Now, one of the major reasons as to why the bridge was being demolished to necessitate the installation of a new footbridge was because this particular one was in a very poor state, and the garbage that was also just on the sides of the footbridge, quite a lot of them, making it very unbearable for pedestrians to cross over from one side of the road to the other side of the road. And bear in mind that the major reason as to why we normally have this on the roads, which is a footbridge, is just first of all to reduce on accidents, and then two, to reduce on the traffic flow. So this area has been closed for a while, at least for the purpose of construction of this footbridge. This is how it had been. And some residents around this area, especially those coming from areas around High Rise, also those living areas around Langata Road, coming all the way to the city center, had been complaining of how the project or the process was taking a little bit of a while up until the construction process was meant to be complete, because this is the state in which this footbridge looked like up until just some months ago, before yesterday when it was opened up to the public. So this is how the new Mbagathi Way footbridge looks like. The footbridge is already complete, opened up to the public, and all this is expected to ease the traffic flow, and of course, like I mentioned earlier, to also reduce on the number of death cases, especially along this route, because I mean, this is again why we normally have footbridges on the road. And the concept is still the same. When you lack this, it simply means that traffic police have to constantly stop vehicles just for pedestrians to cross over. But when this is in place, then it just simply means that also pedestrians have their own specific lanes, just how we have the pedestrian walkways along the roads. So this one is also one of the key reasons why it's normally put there, again, to just at least ease traffic flow on most of major roads or even sleep roads. Key example like this one in particular, which is Mbagathi Way. So right now we want to quickly check the traffic flow, try to see how all this process of installation is impacting traffic flow, if at all it is reducing the traffic flow along this route, like I mentioned, given the reason as to why that was being installed there. And this is how the area looks like, at least not so bad, in as much as there's a bit of a gridlock there, particularly on that lane that is coming to the city center as you leave
leave areas of Langata Road. And again, not forgetting the fact that around the Timor roundabout, there's still some ongoing road works which are still happening on that area, which again is expected to take a really longer period of time. That is the construction of the overpass and the underpass there. But on that specific lane, as you head over to the city center, you can still use this as an alternative route. However, around areas next to Mbagathi Hospital, as you head over to Riara University on that stretch, also as you get to branch off to high-rise estate, along these routes or areas that I'm mentioning is just where you'd perhaps have to make do with that traffic there, because there's a bit of a traffic. But past those areas, as you head over to the roundabout, that is the city mortuary roundabout. If at all you're coming to the city center, at least on those sections, not so bad, moving at a pretty fast pace, and that continues all the way past V Road as you head over to the city center. Again, also past the roundabout, not so bad. So that just on those sections that I'm mentioning is where you'd have to make do with that traffic there. But on the other side, again, not so bad as well, moving at a very, very fast pace. So again, it also simply means if at all you are coming from areas around city center, Kubingong, Ngong Road on that section, as well as areas around Kenyatta. If at all you're heading through Mbagathi Way, just a smooth sailing, no traffic at all. And this is why we have that green color there, which is a clear indicator of swift moving, not traffic at all on those sections. So again, it also simply means that we do not need to look at alternative routes, at least around this area for now, in as much as there's a bit of a traffic, but it's only on some sections, beat pits here and there where there's a bit of a traffic, but all together moving at a very, very swift pace along this route. And that is how traffic looks like this morning around Mbagathi Way. Just a quick look on this area where there's also a bit of a construction. This is around the Timor roundabout, given the fact that Mbagathi Way begins from this area and it goes all the way up to the city mortuary roundabout. Again, also around the roundabout, not so bad, moving at a very fast pace. And this is again why we are seeing that orange color, which is a clear indication of traffic beginning to slightly build up, but altogether manageable kind of traffic. And yes, that is how the area is looking like this morning in terms of traffic. We are still going to focus on what is happening along Mbagathi Way. If at all things get thick, that's why we are here, to give you alternative routes, at least to have it easy as you're going about your businesses this Monday.
All right, it seems like it's going to be a very busy day in the country, and looking at the traffic situation in the CBD, it's going to be a crazy one. Now that Form 1 students are reporting for the first term, and as always, we wish them all the best. Welcome to the show. My name is Victor Lo. The show right now is Eye on Politics. A lot happened over the weekend, and politics is what drives us as a nation. We are heading to that, that political season. It's already on. And most politicians will be giving us those statements which of we either will make this country or break it. But we hope that every discussion and every statement they'll make will be for the betterment of this particular country. So joining me in studio right now, I have got Wakili Warungu Mwangi, who is also joining me. He's a political commentator and a political analyst as well. And I'm also joined by Michael Agwanda, who is governance expert and a political analyst as well. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's August. It's August. The year is coming to an end.
Happy new month.
Happy new month, yes. And 1 million students are going to school right now. Starting with you, Enoch, when you told me that you're dropping kids in school, most parents are feeling the pinch right now.
Good morning, our viewers.
Yes.
And this is just to let the country know that it's a very difficult day today.
Exactly.
That Form 1s are joining school today. I run a non-profit organization that supports and pays tuitions to hundreds of children in this country. And I also run a school, a private school for that reason. I know for a fact that the country is not in a right position today. instead of people celebrating that their kids are going to school, more than a half of the population that their children will be going to school today are mourning, simply because they will not be able to pay tuition. Let me make it clear. It is becoming expensively every day to take a child to school in Kenya. I can tell you the school fees has actually been moderated a little bit in high school because the government has come very hard on the head teachers about school fees. However, the government has not reined on the head teachers that have taken the opportunity to hide other fees in the name of other activities. They have put uniform to be very expensive. An average of about 25 to 30,000 you'll have to pay in a big boarding school just to get uniform. That is not cheap at all. And then you'll have to pay money for development fees that is ranging to be about 5,000 shillings. Parents are paying for it out there, and remember that no receipt is given to a parent. So in other words, what the head teachers are trying to do is, I have no obligation on this. I did not give you a receipt. You didn't give me the money, and so follow whomsoever you gave the money. This is happening within the schools, and the Ministry of Education cannot say that with the absence of the receipt, this is not happening, because Kenyans are out there and they're sharing publicly what is happening. To change a school from some people that were given schools are very far away, perhaps were not able to afford boarding school, have decided to change their students to other schools that are might be day school but cheaper also. They will have to part with 5,000 to 10,000, and then the condition will be you have to pay school fees in full, in totality, before the admission. Why are we punishing a parent that is already having an issue with paying school fees in an expensive school and want to come to a cheaper school, and then you still have to demand 10,000, 5,000 for this child to get into school, and you want to demand that this child must pay school fees in totality, as if the first term is the entire year. As I conclude on this, we also have monies that are being paid in this school that are called motivational fee.
The caution money.
Motivation money.
Yes.
I don't reject a reason behind it, but I just think the amount of money is prohibitive in the sense that you find parents being told to pay 5,000 shillings for motivation, fees, whatever it's called. But what about our students today that are going to go to boarding school? Shopping alone for a girl is close to about 30,000.
Exactly.
30 to 40,000. If you add all these things plus school fees that is required, it's between 100 to 200,000.
Depending on the distance and the school where the student is going.
Depending on the distance the child is going to. Where can the normal wananchi, mama mboga, be able to afford this unless you're telling our citizenry that if you're not rich, we will not be able to educate our children? Quite an unfortunate situation.
Let me just bring in Wakili here. Wakili, Michael has just raised a very good, important point here. My nephew is joining Form 1 this morning, and when I looked at the fee structure, he said, Uncle, there is this particular 11,500 shillings that is supposed to go with in cash. 11, apart from school fees, apart from the shopping and all that, 11,500 shillings is going to be paid in school for different things, socks, a sweater, a pair of trousers, and what have you. Do you really think we are going to get any better with time, Wakili?
Great to be here. Good morning, Mr. Victor.
Good morning.
Good morning to our viewers, and happy new month. And just to complement what my colleague has said, students are going back amidst a very hard times. We are still having Corona with us, and you know what Corona has done? It has salvaged a lot of things. Most of the parents, they are still going through a pay cut that was never reinstated or raised even after Corona went down. And most are business people, so business is still slow, though still trying to catch back. So it's a lot of things. Secondly, that we are having a system, school system that is not properly regulated. Because some of these fuel money needed is never part of the fuel or the school fee. So even as we have today's morning discussion, it's good to direct these issues to Professor Makoha and ask the entire Ministry of Education to have a proper regulation and stringent measures to those people that or schools or administrators that probably will be hiking or adding any other fee that is not part and parcel of what the ministry has agreed in whole.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, on the Star newspaper, they say that schools defy Magoha's fee cuts as Form 1 join school today. Now, parents want TSC to take action against the heads who fail to comply. And a spot check by the newspaper says that most of the schools have demanded between 20,000 shillings, 35,000, 53,000. You know, in terms of whatever you're going to go with today, that's apart from the school fees. And they say that, you know, they need money. And you see the government, this is according to CS Magoha, the government decided to slash that fee, and the government was going to pay part of that money to the to the schools. Parents are going to be squeezed. By the time, you know, you're done with Form 4, it's going to be a whole new ball game. Mike?
You know, it is good that we are in KBC, which is a government agency.
Yes.
And that we are addressing Professor Magoha, who is a Minister of Education. When a newspaper reports that the schools have defied the orders of CS Magoha, then Magoha needs to know that he's failing in his responsibility. If he's sitting at Jogo House and he thinks that schools are being run properly, then he's deceiving himself. And having himself in the media every 2 days and addressing an issue here and there, and not addressing the predicament that parents are going through every single day in the hands of the school and in the hands of the principal, I think Professor Magoha must redefine his way of managing Ministry of Education. If he's running education, and education system more so in secondary school and in primary school seem to be having issues in terms of regulating you know, monies and fees that are supposed to be paid, it is not good for the country and for the development of this country. And more so when you have a policy of 100% transition from primary to secondary school, then we are deceiving ourselves. Remember that Honorable Mwai Kibaki and President Mwai Kibaki brought the idea of free primary education to enable more parents to take children to school. In the villages, if a parent does not have money, what happens is they let their children stay at home and they don't even bother about it. But you see, this is what the government of Kibaki decided, that for us to aid these students and children that are staying home because they don't have school fees, let's bring in free primary education. And then let's subsidize what goes into secondary education. And let's also subsidize what happens in primary education. And let's also subsidize what happens in higher colleges. But this has happened very well until more recently, when the head teachers decided that we'll be smarter than the minister, because after all, the minister stays in Nairobi and occasionally just does a spot check.
You wouldn't know what's happening deep down in Turkana or something.
Another thing that we have to agree on is the intimidation of high board members in secondary school must stop, because it is the board members plus the principals that twist the parents. When they come and they say, we need to do this building and this building is going to cost this much, how many people agree with this? They will already have many people that were planted in there. And if you say no and say, look, this is getting expensive for parents who might not even be able to afford, you'll be marked and you'll be branded a hater of the development of the institution. I don't think so. What I know for a fact is when Ministry of Education says that this is what needs to be paid, there is no reason why BOM or the board or the principal decides that we need to charge parents more.
Exactly.
It is the Ministry of Education that has realized that the economy is a little bit hard, not only to them, but also to Mwananchi, to Mama Mboga. And if they realize that as a result, if we continue charging X amount of money, we will only lose more children who will not be going to high school, then why should the BOM and the board and the principal decide that we must charge this fees? But for us to hide from it, we will not give the receipts.
Let me just bring in Wakili here. Wakili, from where you sit, what are some of the legal implications that, for example, a principal of a school decides and say, you must come with 20,000 shillings before we give you an admission?
And I think, Mr. Victor, this is where now we bring the other arms of the government, the parliament and the judiciary. It's good we tell our viewers that parliamentarians have major roles. One is the oversight, the other one is legislative, then the other representation. Those are the constitutional laws. And it's upon them to promulgate a subsidiary regulation that criminalize addition of unnecessary fees, so that whatever CS Makoha is saying shouldn't turn to be a populist saying or statement.
Yes.
Because you see, Makoha is still a part and parcel of the government, and sometimes the government operates on a populist statement as a way of exciting the masses. But deep down there, the masses will you still find that fees is still added. So it's upon Parliament to come up with, to promulgate a proper subsidiary regulation.
Yes.
Put in a certain standard in terms of the fees, and put in an offense in terms of any increments made. And from there now the judiciary will take praise or effect in terms of making sure that...
But somebody would argue that Magoha speaks on behalf, he's part and parcel of the government. So every school head should just get that statement straight and square.
Sometimes it doesn't happen that way in the world of politics, because you still have to remember that Makoha is still part of the government and the system. And you see some of these statements are given as populist politics. But when there is a proper promulgated subsidiary or any regulation or an act is made to effect the same, then if a certain principal increases the fee, then it will be very easy for him to be arrested and prosecuted in a court of law. But if there is no such promulgated subsidiary regulation, even if CS Makoha says it will turn to be a populist or lip services.
It's going to be a tough situation here, Mike, even as you close that, it's important because, 1.17 million students are joining Form 1 right now, and the situation across the country is so dire for most parents. Most of them lost their jobs. We all know what happened. So we can only hope and pray that things will work out pretty well for the parents out there.
Sure.
I think, Victor, one thing we have to ask ourselves is all these costs that we've mentioned, whether it's motivational fee, uniform fee, shoppings, and all these other things, some of them are very necessary, like mattresses and stuff like that. The question we need to ask ourselves is it possible to eliminate some of this cost? And I think it is possible. It is possible to eliminate motivational fee. It is possible to eliminate development fee, so that if there is a development issue within the school, let's engage the county, let's engage the CDF, let's engage the central government. I think Ministry of Education had billions and billions of money that was supposed to build in more classes. And if they cannot roll out the implementation of this, then it's the CS Makoha that need to question about that. But last and not least, why must we insist on 25 to 30,000 uniform? Why must we insist? Is it uniform that takes people to school, or people are going to school to acquire education? When we compare what is happening with the first world countries, they've run away from uniform. Kids are going home to school with home clothes. In other words, they've already cut costs. This uniform and books is the biggest conduit in this country in education, because uniform Now, secondary school is charging 25 to 30,000, per child.
Yeah.
That, and they insist that you must buy that uniform from a specific bookshop. And that bookshop, of course, you know that the principal the other people have benefit from.
Let me just give a scenario. When we did a comparison, when my nephew was going to buy a school uniform from school, and then when we did an inquiry from outside, there was a difference of 900 shillings. Yeah. 900 shillings. So it's cheaper to buy it outside at an independent shop, but get the exact uniform that you're going to get in school. So there was a gap of 900 shillings. So you can imagine we have got 700 students joining from one. So 900 times 700, how much is that? Where is that money going to? Anyway, we just hope that CS Magoha is going to crack the whip now that students are joining from one right now, and we can all wish them all the best in their next course of 4 years. It's going to be a good one for you. So go there and make good use of it. Parents, keep soldiering on. All right. So, gentlemen, let's get into the debate. It has been a very busy weekend, and the past week, we saw friends coming enemies, again from enemies becoming friends. Let me start with you, Akili. The NASA coalition, according to them, is dead. Honorable Raila Odinga said that NASA played its role. NASA ilifanya kazi yake na time yake iliisha. So we are moving forward. But none of them has quit the coalition formally. From the political, from the legal perspective, what are the implications? Because it's just by word of mouth that they have quit the NASA coalition.
One is good to kickstart this debate by mentioning that the sickness of NASA started during the swearing of Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga. That's when the sickness started. And it worsened on 9th of March, the year 2018, when Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga and President Kenyatta stepped at the Harambee House and they had a handshake. So that's when now the sickness began. And now that political marriages have been given analogy of the marriages in Kenya, and they are saying now they are undergoing a divorce. In law, there are two decrees when you are giving a divorce, and the last one is called a decree absolute. So whatever they are giving now is what we'd compare with the normal divorce as a decree absolute.
Yes.
And the truth is, just extending the analogy, one ground of divorce in a normal marriage is a desertion of matrimonial praise. So we can assume that when Raila went and shook hand with President Kenyatta on 9th March 2018, naturally he deserted NASA. So that's when now the divorce started. And before your wife or your husband decide to divorce you formally, he first leaves all her matrimonial home for 2 or 3 years. So what they are doing are the formality, and it's good to explain to Kenyans and our views that the MOU that was deposited with the Registrar of Political Parties had stated that if 3 affiliate parties of NASA withdraws, NASA will be automatically deemed to have died.
Yes.
And these withdrawal must be formal, not by the way of mouth or the populist way of the way politicians
the press conferences.
And the conference. So initially ANC met, and ODM have also met, and Wiper. And I think the destruction of NASA is coming from within. And it's coming from within. It's a wider political strategy in what we say behind plans and maneuvers. So it's been destroyed from within. And I think they'll just have in the comparison the decree absolute deposited with the Registrar of Political Parties formally to wind it down. But as we talk, now the formal process of winding NASA is on top gear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mike, what's your take on that? It's all water under the bridge right now.
I think what Waruru is talking about is correct.
Yes.
However, I will departure from the fact that he's saying that they've divorced.
In the recent sense, did you see it coming? Because most of them lived in denial, NASA, Badoiko, this and that.
Because they had an instrument that was deposited to the Register of Political Parties. That means it was legally binding. But as you can see, that they were not working together, and as my colleague has narrated very, very clearly, where the rain started hitting NASA. But the rain did not hit NASA because Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta shook hands. The rain started beating NASA when the presidency that they were all waiting for did not take place. And that is when Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga believed that he won the election, and then he went to Uhuru Park and he was sworn in. When he was sworn in, some of his colleagues in NASA did not want to be part of it. And it is clear Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka has come out and said that he could not be part of an illegality.
Yeah, because he said that it's a senior council.
We also know that Honorable Musalia Mudavadi was somewhere and he was supposed to be in the venue, but he didn't. We also know that Honorable Wetangula was also somewhere and he didn't show up at the Uhuru Park. The only person that showed up that was ready to take the bullet was Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Now, very quickly, Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga realized that he was not going to play the populist politics of being an opposition leader forever. And he founded an opportunity to have a handshake with the president that brought great clemency and brought great normalcy in this country, to a point where we can only imagine. I mean, you remember the days where every Monday people were going to the street and there were people were literally taking off. And there was we reached a place where nobody will invest here from international community. Nobody wanted to come here because of insecurity. Our wildlife, tourism was dwindling, and to such extent, then you realize the reputation of a country was just going farther south and farther south. Now, when they had a handshake, I think President Uhuru Kenyatta said it in public, he's had a wonderful time in his second term trying to manage the country without a very vicious opposition that was there before in the name of Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. But what really caused the problem of NASA now not, sort of everybody going back to their cocoon and saying we had a PG meeting or, a leadership meeting, and we've now declared as a party that we're running out from NASA. I think that the gentleman, in the name of Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, in the name of Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, in the name of Honorable Wetangula, perhaps have shot themselves in the foot. Why do I say so? Because the big brother in the house here, yes, they were part of NASA, and they can all say that they had equal shares, and they can also all say that if there was anything, they should have benefited as equal partners. It is not possible. They all know that the big river here is Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, and there were all the small rivers that were actually teeing into the big river for that reason. And as such, we know very clearly that none of them can stand on their own and say, I want to run for president and win in the president of this country. As a result, they decided to come out. When they were coming out, I will tell you this, Victor, they were coming out not because they hated the person of Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, or not because they hated NASA. They were coming out because there was some financial agreement that perhaps were not met. And when you look at the response that Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga team and the ODM came out with and say, challenge us, how much do you want? What is it that belongs to you? Then there were questions that we could not fix at that point. But ultimately, they later on agreed and said, we might have some money, but the government still owes political parties 7 billion that still need to be brought to the political party so that you can get your share. But remember, the shares were based on the numbers that were in parliament for that reason. Now, I see a little something different. I think this was a setup for this gentleman. They came out of NASA and they thought they won a big time. But I think it is a blessing to ODM, because if had ODM gone into 2022 general election and won with the instruments that were deposited at the political, party, the register of political parties,
yes,
they would have been hugely disadvantaged. But now that they're having no NASA, they can now get into legal agreement, or even if it's just, talk agreement, collision, but now it will be a better one in the interest of the presidency of Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga than having this instrument that was written for the presidency of Raila Amolo Odinga in 2017.
Yes.
That did not work.
Okay.
Now for 2022, it must be a new instrument.
Wakili, Mike has just raised that point that it's a blessing in disguise for ODM as they move towards 2022. The question is it so? Let me just answer that probably when you come for after this break. The discussion is just starting, so just stick around because we have got so much more we want to talk about, because now the NASA is no more. So, and Raila Odinga yesterday said that they're still talking. Are they going to talk? Are they come back together? Just a matter of wait and see. Let's take a break. We'll be right back after this break.
Now that she ran off, we now have a good reason to ban her, which is good for us.
What are you doing out here? Arrest this woman right now!
Promise me 3 things right now. I can give what you want.
Do you promise?
Tim did that, Prince Chinny, I swear. They went late for an instant.
Wang Fei Ye, I want you to research Lord Fei's background and not miss any detail.
相思泪许的心头上，叶儿了手在枝上，摇影是荒凉。
Quiero amarte de una forma diferente, de otro modo.
Don't you see that you're just prolonging the agony? All of us are hurting, Flavia. Our dad's death, Juliana, hurts me as much as all of you.
And now I know why my godmother told me that my mother was dead when they could no longer find her body.
I can imagine that being a child made it harder for you to understand what happened.
I'm so tired of pretending that I'm grieving in front of everyone.
I have to go back to Mexico. It's a good thing that the police have officially ended the search. What a hassle.
Yes. And you handled the matter about the will very well. It was timely.
I was the one who set fire to stars.
De una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente.
Ni kitu gani ulimwambia Maya mpaka yupo so convinced kwamba utakuja kuzungumza na babake?
Birthday ya Badi si muhimu kwako, sio?
Jamani mume wangu, mimi sijasema hivyo.
Mimi leo niko tayari kutoroka. Vipi ule mpango?
Pe jina lako kijana.
Ujui jina la baba wa mtoto mtarajiwa?
Like spending my money, baby.
Na kama hutaki mimi nitumie, wataka nani atumie?
And welcome back. When you had your break, for us the discussion was still going on here behind the scenes. All right, welcome back. My name is Victor Lo. I'm joined by Wakili Mwangi and Michael Agwanda here. Gentlemen, Wakili, from where we stopped before we went on a break, nobody saw this coming. And of course, Honorable Raila Odinga said that they're still talking. So, you know, the cliche statement, in politics, there are no permanent enemies, there are no permanent friends. It's about interests. Is it coming to pass right now?
What happened is that if you look at the current situation is that Raila wants to get into a new marriage with Jubilee, more of a cooperation other than a merger. Because you see, if it's a merger, then he'll have to dissolve his party. Jubilee will have to be dissolved, and I don't see that one coming because ODM has really built itself. I think it's the second party in Kenya in terms of grassroots after Kano, because Kano still have its grassroots very tight. If you go back to your village, you still have you still see a building with that Jogoo drawing.
Life members.
Or you still see mzes or elder people who still are staunch Kano followers.
Yes.
So for Raila, and just to compare with the knowledge we had given on for the normal marriages, for you to marry your another wife and to do it legally, you have to divorce this one. Otherwise, it's become very hard. If you are still not still in love with your wife and still getting another marriage, automatically she'll keep on disturbing you. So it's good for Raila because he'll now go into another political marriage comfortably without the burden of these other three parties. And you know, they say in politics and just comparison, there is no way a big river can have water taken to a small river. It's upon small rivers to have its water taken.
What do you mean in simpler terms?
What I mean is that the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka, in due respect, and Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula, when now chicken will come home to roast, and they will realize that they will be in a very tight spot, and the only option that will be left will go back to Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga and negotiate for other things, not necessarily the presidency. Like Moses Wetangula can go and vie for Bungoma seat or be or have if Raila will have as a speaker of the National Assembly or the Senate. So when now Chikel will come home to roast, they will realize that you know, they can't go on their own. So they will realize that they have come back to Raila Odinga and negotiate for other positions in there.
But even as they say that, they said that you know, all of them are going to form, they are welcoming Raila Odinga to One Kenya lands, and they are going to be one amongst equal. Mike, how is it going to be? He's talked about, you know, small rivers and the big rivers. One will have to join the other.
Well, I think Warungu was a little bit conservative in his words.
He tried to play it safe.
When we were on break, he said that there is no Oka without Gideon Moi. He did say that now. But that is not to say that the other partners of Oka are not very strong. I know that Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka commands a huge vote in Eastern. I also know
1.5 million.
I also know very well, you know, it could be 2 million by now. I also know very well that when you have Honorable Wetangula and Honorable you know, ANC leader Mudavadi, if they work together, they command a huge vote in Western province. And now you have the governor of Kakamega also coming in as a strong also you know, command of votes over there. So you need Western and you need Eastern and you need Coast. But the question that everybody is asking is Honorable you know, Gideon Moi able to rally behind the support from Rift Valley. Maybe a section, not all, more so if the deputy president is running, it might not be in its entirety. But what about Honorable Raila Odinga? And that's, I say this because I think Honorable Raila Odinga has run we've seen his numbers.
Yeah.
His numbers has not just been in Luo Nyanza, but his numbers has been in Western, in Eastern, is Northern Kenya, has been in Coastal, he has been in Nairobi. Any place in this country other than Central that has been a little bit murky, you know, for many years, simply because they've had a very strong presidential aspirant in Central Province that eventually have emerged to become the president of this country. And so you can see that the only place where Honorable Raila Odinga has had issues with is Central Province. Now, if we have a support now from Central Province in the name of the current sitting president, and any other, you know, people that are like-minded with ODM and Honorable Raila Odinga, then it is practically impossible to find Kalonzo Musyoka, Wetangula or Musalia Mudavadi emerging on top of him. It is practically impossible. We have not seen Honorable Gideon Moi run for a presidency. He's not really had a shot on it, and is not announced that he's going to run for presidency. And for that reason, for them to say that we can only allow Honorable Raila Odinga to join OCA, and we can't allow ourselves to join Honorable Raila Odinga, I think it's
going to be a game of like a ping pong game here.
Yeah, they're probably shooting beyond their weight.
Wakili, Raila said yesterday at a funeral in Vihiga County, he said that he's going to start touring the nation and he's ready to form, you know, new friends. You're going to have a conversation with the friends across the country. The question therefore is, who are we likely to see Raila teaming up with apart from Honorable Musalia, Kalonzo and Wetangula?
I think what Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga wants to do is to craft a political strategic machinery like the one he had in 2007, the Pentagon.
Yes.
And I've always argued in many platforms that there was no of current times good political strategic machinery like the Pentagon. You see, the Pentagon used to have leaders from nearly every every, if it was coast, they used to have Laji Balala, there was Musalia Mudavadi from Western,
and we had Giru from Eastern.
Giru, we had DP Ruto, by then he was an MP. It was one of the best political strategic machinery. I think that's what he's trying to craft. If it's caught, probably he'll have Joho. If it's Western, he can have Kakamega governor, Wycliffe Oparanya.
Yes.
If it's Central, and you know, I've argued that in Central, Raila Odinga only need 25 to 30% support. If it's you saw Governor Mutua attending his visitation in Molanga.
Exactly.
So probably he'll try to pull from the lower eastern. He'll try to pull Governor Mutua. So that's what Raila Odinga is trying to strategize. And you know what Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga has noticed? You know, initially he wanted to use BBI as a precursor, a rejuvenation toward the 2022.
Absolutely.
So he has realized either way, whether the court on 20th this month ruled on the favor of the petition or the respondent, he has realized that
the whole BBI thing is going to slow down.
Yeah, there will be a time that BBI will be trying to ride on a dead horse. So he has realized that, and he's a very good politician. He's able to rejuvenate and re-energize. So he has realized 11 or 12 months prior to election, it's now time for him now to start strategizing and now to be strategize seriously for 2022 without necessarily waiting for BBI, depending on which way it goes.
Okay. Mike, the Pentagon was, people would look at that picture, if all of us can flash back and see that picture the way it appeared way back. He's talked about Honorable Ngilu was there, you know, the late Nyaga. We had people like William Ruto, who was then an MP. The way he said, are we likely to see a repeat of that? And then now One Kenya Alliance now trooping to join Raila Odinga, because Raila Odinga, perhaps to ask you, is there a way to play a second fiddle?
Raila Odinga is going to run for president. I've said this again and again, and I think at the appropriate time I will be, you know, my words will come to speak to the nation. But I don't see Raila running and saying somebody else torture like he did to Honorable Mwai Kibaki. Raila is not going to say that. This is perhaps the critical time for him in his career as a politician, perhaps a critical time for him in his age as a statesman, perhaps a critical time for him also as a man that perhaps will say this is his last kick on this.
Yes.
And I don't think he wants to go down by not running as president, more so if the president is in hand with him. I don't think Raila has not amounted to the presidency of the Republic of Kenya as a result of fewer votes. I think, and I strongly believe, that there have been a lot of malpractice and a lot of issues of accountability with the votes in this country, and more so with also interference. And we've seen this in 2017 when they went to court and the court nullified presidential election, and many others. How I wish, we remember the 2007 when President Mwai Kibaki was actually sworn in very, very late in the evening. The question is, with his popularity and the goodwill that he's had as a person that wanted to turn around this country to a position that everybody was admiring, I don't see him playing a second fiddle. I see him running for presidency. When you talk about the Pentagon, and we talked about the NASA, and we're also talking about when they were in LDP and all those days there, I don't think there was any other time that he was close to government than he is today.
Yes.
And this gives him a greater hope and a greater support, not only from the citizens of this country, but also even in places that seem to have been a little bit difficult to get into, like Central. But I want to say this. We also know very well that in Central there have been a number of people, as my friend has said, that have been voting for Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. But because of the malpractice within the IBC, those votes perhaps have never seen the light of the day. We also know that in Rift Valley, and I have facts to that extent, that even up to 2017, there were people who voted for Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, but they never saw the light of the day. In fact, some of those votes, some of them found themselves in the river, and we have information to that, extent. Now, when you have a government that is also supporting, transparent and accountability in the electioneering period like what we have today, our only prayer is, will IBC do their job well? I don't see a scenario where Oka is going to say, we are going it alone, and Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga is going it alone with William with Honorable, the President of the Republic of Kenya, and that is Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes.
Because for now they are together in this handshake, and it will be foolhardy for them to say, well, let him just go with President Uhuru Kenyatta. Let Raila Amolo Odinga go with President Uhuru Kenyatta. We're going to go it on our own. I can tell you that they're smarter than that,
difficult.
and for that reason, they will say we are joining this.
Exactly. So Wakili, what's now the fate of One Kenya Alliance? If Honorable Raila decides and say, I'm not going to join you, so what now remains for them?
You see, One Kenya, the creator or the manufacturer, the engineer of One Kenya Alliance had this objective. One, it was meant probably to reduce on Raila popularity and probably reduce him as a Luo Nyanza kingpin. And that's why you remember when they were giving the statement after the 44 County Assembly had passed the BBI bill, much of the political credence were given to Senator Baringo Gideon Moi. And you remember it brought squabbles within the handshake. And you remember that time, it was that time that Senator Gideon Moi visited Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga when he was unwell. And that's when now One Kenya started shaking. And just what I said when we were on a break, what is One Kenya without Senator Gideon Moi? I think One Kenya without Senator Gideon Moi, it's dead. For one, politics highly depend on what we call resources. You can't, it's very hard in Kenya to sustain an election without resources. So without Senator Gideon, and you remember, rumor has it that he's the one who gave the funding for Matungu and Kabchai, and of course Machakos. And I remember asking viewers in another platform, it looks like One Kenya had one sole purpose of winning the 3 by-election.
Yes.
But from there, after now the visitation of Senator Gideon Moi to Raila, I think he came back to with a message to the Oka that we'll have to support Raila Odinga, and then the rest of you can negotiate for other position. And I think it became pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you remember Senator Gideon Moi mentioned this week, there is no way he'll join Oka and they still have a cooperation with Jubilee. So I think without Senator Gideon Moi, and Oka will be dead. And if you check very clearly, Oka has 2 leaders from one community. So in terms of numbers, I don't think they'll be able to have one of them stand and raise the kind of numbers that are needed to win a presidential election.
And in Kenya, it's about numbers. It's about numbers. I mean, the number of votes, when you look at, as at 2017, the total number of registered voters in Central itself was around 4.4 million voters. Perhaps that number has gone up, depending on the registration process. Michael, they are starting countrywide tour. That is, remember what Honorable Raila said, that we are going to start a tour. On this end will be on Raila Odinga, and on this other side will be Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta. The question is it going to be somehow a subtle way of an endorsement? Because they say they'll be walking around to, to do the project, investigations, what has been happening in terms of development. But will it be like a way of endorsing Honorable Raila Odinga in a subtle way?
It will take God himself to have President Uhuru Kenyatta support Deputy President William Somaya Ruto Daktari. But we know that the relationship between Honorable Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta has been quite, seamless in the last few years here. We also know that Honorable Raila Odinga has said in public that he wants to start countrywide, rallies. My big problem is that when they last went to Kisumu, COVID-19 hit Kisumu in a big way.
Badly,
I'm fearing that that is a very pregnant statement, that everybody is expecting them to start selling their policies and to let everybody know that they're running for presidency, what they stand for. Honorable Raila Odinga started using his Twitter to educate the public on some of the matters that he wants to be taken care of, how the government should be run and stuff like that. But having rallies is going to high numbers of COVID-19, and that's my fear. I wish we could use other podiums for influencing on the voters and educating the voters on what their policies, philosophies and aspirations are, so that we do not have these big rallies that will only hurt people through COVID-19. I had had COVID-19 myself. I know how much I spent through the ICU, and I know that ordinary people are not able to afford that, and many people out there will die in the hospital because they cannot even afford oxygen. So let's restrain on having more rallies in this country. This is an appeal to all our politicians devoid of their positions in the society. But I think the rallies that they're talking about is to tell Oka that you also need to do your rallies. We will see who comes to your rallies, and we will see who comes to my rallies. And if my rallies seem to be bigger than yours, then you know which direction you need to go to. And perhaps the direction you need to go to is through ODM, because that to me where I see it. But I have not seen Oka saying that we are going to start having rallies and we're going to start visiting every corner of this country. I wait to see the influence it will have on the hearts and the people of this country in every corner. I wait to see.
So what are they waiting for then?
You see, that's a problem.
Yes.
The problem here is there are some leaders in Oka that are still waiting to be endorsed by Honorable Raila Odinga. They're still waiting to be endorsed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. The time is running out. You cannot be endorsed if you've not prepared your own grounds. And your own grounds must be prepared by you.
Yeah.
If Gideon Moi wants to be the president, and he has not said he wants to be the president, we'll be running across the country. If Musalia Mudavadi really wants to be the president, he should be going to every corner of this country. I know Honorable Wetangula has not declared publicly that he wants to run for president, but Kalonzo Musyoka has said that he wants to run for president of this country.
Raila Odinga again.
Instead of going to in Nairobi and maybe some few parts of Ukambani area, I want to see him in every corner of this country, even if it is town hall meetings. Let him have it so that he can appeal to the people instead of just waiting to be a kati-kati kind of leader like what we saw. I want to see these leaders sell their philosophies, their aspirations, their dreams for this country in person, and not to wait to be sailed as a group, because that group mentality is perhaps what is making the Kutangatanga wing say they're just waiting for positions. They're just waiting to be given. They're just waiting to extend the government so that it's bigger, so that they find themselves in there. To their surprise, if that happens, they may not even find themselves there. There might be newer people in those positions.
Wakili, do you share the same statement? They might find themselves in a position where, the door is closed, like the Noah's Ark. We invited you, but mulichelewa.
Not necessarily, because you see election in Kenya, if you follow the pattern, things are normally very clear during the last 3 or 4 months. If we look back and we say that history is the power of prediction of prophecy, in the year 2006, 2007, Kibaki had remained partyless or without a party until October, 3 months prior to the election of then December. That's when now PNU came. In 2002, NAC was started in September. In the year 2012, 2013, TNA and URP came into cooperation in December, and by then the election was in March. So I don't think chicken will come to roast for these guys soon. Around February, March there. And they will be in a tight spot in a way that they will realize if they don't join Raila Odinga, then I think for them politically they will be done. For now, they can mention they want whichever seat, whichever coalition, for the purpose of increasing their stake in the negotiation table. That's what they are doing.
Okay. Let me ask you this question then. If Raila Odinga says that he's going to have quote-unquote new people next to him or by his side, how is it going to be? Give me a scenario of, let's say, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi is not with him again, moving forward, Moses Wetangula and Kalonzo Musyoka. Give me a probable kind of figures that you are likely to see working with Raila Odinga moving forward.
I think Raila Odinga is trying to tap the rich Mount Kenya vote. And since 1992, during the time of Kenneth Jido Matiba in 97, when Kibaki vied, and 2002, 2007, now the Uhuru time, Mount Kenya has been voting as one homogeneous voting bloc. And 27 years from 27 or 28 or 30 years from then, from 92, it seems that it will be a split vote. So Raila Odinga, I see him probably trying to venture into Mount Kenya East, which has been very friendly to him. You remember that he normally gets quite a lot of chunk votes from the Meru region, from the Tharaka-Nithi, and if you watch Raila Odinga's rally in Embu, they are almost full. So probably, and Mount Kenya East, in their way of disintegrating from the West, they have really created a very strong, they have taken the restore and build Kenya. And if you want to see how that party will be strong, you have to look at the officials. Chairman, former Embu Senator Lenny Kivuti, the man is highly resourced. Then if you look at Gitovu Imanyala, the Secretary General, we normally say that you can never substitute experience. He's a very experienced man.
Yeah.
And you see the party will have the blessings of the Meru Governor, Kelaito Moronge. And there is a book that he has written, and I would request people to read, called Beyond Politics. And in that book, he mentioned that people who don't want to support Dr. William Ruto says that he's very unpredictable. And in fact, he goes ahead and compare Dr. William Ruto with the Führer. The Führer was the name given to Hitler. Yeah, so he goes and compare him with the Führer and Daniel Moi, and he says that people who fear him says that he's very unpredictable. So if he'll be part of those people who fears the leadership of the regime of Mheshimiwa the deputy president, he'll automatically, during now using the party, now Raila Odinga may decide now to take advantage, unfair advantage, and probably go and get one of his key political strategies, or from now the East.
Okay. We just like a minute to end the show. Mike, as you comment on that, as well as your last parting shot, where do you see the next 7 months to come right now? We are away almost exactly 1 year to election. We are on second date, and election is just 9th or 8th date of August. So exactly 1 year to go. What are we likely to see?
We are likely to see political formations coming up very, very soon. We are likely to see some other strong point men, as is mentioned. I know that Honorable Paranya is becoming very strong in Western Kenya. But I also know that when you look at Western Province and you're looking at where will Musalia Mudavadi get votes, for instance, is it in Western Kenya? Perhaps not. Even the MCA of Musalia Mudavadi is an ODM person. That means if today Musalia Mudavadi ran for presidency and Honorable Raila Odinga ran for presidency, the only possibility will be, does he want to give William Somaya Ruto the votes ultimately at the end? Because some people run not because they want to win, but they want to spoil for other people. When you have the Eastern people say that Kalonzo Musyoka is going to run, the second question that people will ask you is, where is he going to beat Raila? Yes, perhaps he'll beat him in Eastern Province or in the eastern part of this country, but where else? Is it in cost? Maybe it costs a little bit of dent. What about the leader of Ford Kenya? Ford Kenya is already in shambles. There are two Ford Kenyas, and Honorable Wetangula can not possibly say that he's commanding Ford Kenya. And for that reason, I don't even see him amounting to much other than, renegotiating a position maybe in the next government. And I think he will be very fine with it, as my brother here had already mentioned. I see great political formation. I only pray that we will have new ideas and new partners in these political formations. My biggest fear is that when you have all these other guys who have been always in this political formation in this country, then your prediction could be just as good as mine, that we may have the same people running the government in 2022, and we may not see we'll see very little change in terms of the governance of this country. My problem is, if we do not have a paradigm shift on the governance of this country, then we are putting ourselves into big quagmire in this leadership. I want to see new and young leaders being involved in this, because when you look at all these people, including Honorable Raila Odinga, God has given them some good grace in terms of years. But how can we see some new leaders injected into their formation to take serious positions that can move this country forward?
Absolutely. Gentlemen, absolutely, we just have to end it at that particular point. Wakili, he's just talked about youth. You're an advocate of youth and people living with a disability. We hope that at some point we'll see young men and women getting into the politics of this particular country and change the political landscape once and for all, right?
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming to the show. Absolutely. We
Our
just
pleasure.
had time flies. I also say that when you have a good discussion, time flies.
Yeah.
All right?
It looks like we are starting the show. Eh?
Yeah, it's like we're starting the show. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But we will continue next time. We have just take a break, but when we come back, we still have more after this. Stay around.
Ni kitu gani ulimwambia Maya mpaka yupo so convinced kwamba utakuja kuzungumza na babake?
Birthday ya Badi si muhimu kwako, sio?
Jamani mume wangu, mimi sijasema hivyo.
Ni leo uko tayari kutoroka. Vipi ule mpango?
Pia jina lako kijana.
Hujui jina la baba wa mtoto mtarajiwa?
Like spending my money, baby.
Na kama hutaki mimi nitumie, wataka nani atumie?
Now that she ran off, we now have a good reason to ban her, which is good for us.
What are you doing out here? Arrest this woman right now!
Promise me 3 things right now. I can give what you want.
Do you promise?
Tim did that pristine, I swear. They went late for an instant.
Long Fei, yeah. I want you to research Lord Fei's background and not miss any detail.
相思泪许的心头上，叶儿了守在枝上，要一世荒凉。
Get the VIP access to the best shows on KBC Channel 1. We have something different, something special to spice you up. Get ready for new, exciting and captivating dramas. Movies.
I love the smell.
Comedy.
I went to the Popos. Huh?
Drama.
Did he assault the queen in my house, in my presence?
News, sports, and so much more. Do the things that make you happy on KBC Channel 1.
Right, and at 20 minutes past the top of the hour, time for our last link this Monday. And just let me run you through what we were doing today. This is actually the area in which we were focusing on. This is how Mbagathi Way looks like. But I was telling you earlier that this is actually how the section looked like. This is that footbridge along Mbagathi Way, and this one had to be demolished for the purpose of installing that new footbridge, which is already there. And the reason why this was actually happening is because this one was in a very poor state, and the kind of garbage around this area was also unbearable, making it rather difficult for pedestrians to cross over from one side of the road to the other side. And this one of those busy roads serves as a very good alternative route oftentimes for those coming from areas around Langata Road as well as Valley Road, going to those areas that I've just mentioned. And again, also given the fact that there was some still ongoing roadworks around this area, so this one took a bit of some time just before it got to this point. This is how it had been for the past few months, up until residents around this area complained of how it was taking long in terms of installation, not forgetting the fact that it just leads you over to Mbagathi District Hospital. So again, it was very important for this footbridge to be installed? First of all, like I mentioned, to reduce on the traffic flow, and then 2, to reduce the number of accidents. So this is how now the footbridge looks like. It is already open in terms of installation or construction. That is already complete, and it's already opened up to the public for use. So ultimately, this simply means that that when it comes to traffic flow, that needs to be reduced, because this is again one of the major reasons as to why this footbridge was being installed. So this morning, we're just checking how this process is impacting or affecting the traffic flow altogether, because like I mentioned, there's still some ongoing roadworks around the area of Mbagathi just as you leave the Timor roundabout, and this is in regards of the construction of the overpass and the underpass along Langata Road. So very quickly, just check the traffic flow around that area, try to see if at all it's serving its purpose in terms of traffic reduction. And this is how the area looks like from the Timor roundabout as you branch off to Mbagathi Way. I had mentioned to you earlier that all the time this road serves as a very good alternative route, also given the fact that there's a lot of activities along this route in terms of companies, businesses, industries, in as much as it is there, but not as much. So in terms of traffic, oftentimes there's no really heavy kind of traffic, and the same is also being witnessed, at least as of now, moving at a swift pace. Earlier on, there was a bit of a gridlock, especially around areas of high-rise, areas of as you branch off to Mbagathi District Hospital, but at least right now, smooth sailing, no traffic at all, moving at a very, very swift pace, clearly showing that the major reason as to why that footbridge is being installed, it's serving its purpose, and serving its purpose very, very well. So again, you can still use this as you come to the city center. If at all you are coming from Langata Road and do not want to make do with the traffic, especially around the around the Nyao Stadium roundabout, all the way trickling down to Uhuru Highway, you can branch off through Mbagathi Way, come through the City Mortuary roundabout as you head over to the V Road roundabout, branching off through there and joining to Kenyatta Avenue as you head over to the city center, and also as you leave areas around Ngong Road, still coming through Mbagathi Way. In fact, on that particular lane alone, no traffic at all, smooth sailing, moving at a very, very swift pace. So just on that area where you'll have to perhaps make do with the traffic is as you get to the roundabout there. But aside from that and away from that, moving at a very fast pace, no traffic at all. And that is how the roads are looking like at just 23 minutes past 9 a.m.
All right, and now we move on to the final segment of today's program, and this is on our Family Check segment. And as mentioned earlier, today we're going to be talking about the youth dividend, just trying to understand the whole question of unemployment among our youth and approach it from a solution point of understanding, and just see how we can better position our youth to be employable. Now, you can be part of this conversation. Talk to us using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. At KBC Channel 1 is our official station handle. My handle is at Jane Wamboi across all the social media platforms. We welcome any questions, comments, or clarifications that you may be needing in regards to this conversation. Now, to help us this morning with this topic, we have with us Nahashan Gulali, who is the Youth Empowerment and Economic Strengthening Coordinator at Plan International here in Kenya. Good morning, Nahashan.
Good morning, Jen.
Thank you so much for making time to be with us today.
It's a pleasure.
Are you on the social media platform?
Yes.
How can our viewers get in touch with you?
So you can find me on Twitter by following at Nahashan India and Facebook Angwa Gulali.
All right, there you have it. So if you feel you want to send any questions to him more directly, feel free to do so. Now, let me just take you through some stats that I found on the socials. It is estimated that Africa has the highest concentration of young people, and this is particularly looking at the age group of 15 and 24. It is estimated to be about 200 million. Still looking at this figure, the youth are more likely to be unemployed as compared to the adults. And narrowing it further down, they actually looked at Uganda, which is known, as per the current information, Uganda has the world's youngest population. Now, when you hear such information that, the youth make up a huge majority of the global population, and yet they are more likely to be unemployed as opposed to the adults who have already, figured out their lives, where do you put the youth in this vicious chain of employment and the hopes for them to actually get a stable source of income?
Thanks, Jen. I think even when you're looking at Uganda, I think you're going far. Even let's just contextualize and look at Kenya.
Yes.
And look at the population. The young people are estimated to be 62% of the population.
Yes.
That's according to the 2019 National Census. And out of these 62%, actually, let me just say, that is a reflection whereby 6 out of every 10 people
yes.
who are out there, 6 of them are young people. But out of these 62%, 40% are actually unemployed. So that's a very, it's actually a crisis, it's a time bomb. And looking at that issue of, in Africa we have close to you say 200
million.
200
approximately.
Million, approximately.
Yeah.
The number might be actually increasing.
Higher than that.
Looking at Kenya, let me say the issue of youth unemployment, we actually look at it from both the demand side and the supply side. There are issues that are actually emanating or contributing to youth unemployment from the demand side, and we can actually look at number one, the issue of the economy not growing.
Yes.
The economy is not growing, but the population is actually growing. You can see close to 75, we actually headed to 70% of the population being young people. But the economy is actually stuck at, I think, close to 6%, the GDP. It's not growing. So the economy is not actually generating the jobs to accommodate these young people.
Now, let's take a step back and understand even why, because I believe this is a manifestation of a deeper lying problem. And just look at the basics that could be informing this. And let's just start with something that I found just doing my research. And I don't know how practical this may be when it comes to youth unemployment, but there was the aspect of the family setup, and considering that there are many people who come from broken families and families that do not have that stable footing as a reason that contributes to the rates of unemployment among some youth. From where you stand, from what you have seen interacting with the youth out there, do you feel this is something that has actually has been tested and proven to be a fact that could contribute to this lack of employment for the youth?
Yes, and you're very right. And I will actually approach it from the work we do as a Plan International, whereby we advance children's rights and work towards establishing equality for the girls. So looking at the areas we work, especially the vulnerable, let me say the marginalized areas, areas like Kajiado, areas like Tana River, you'll realize that the issue of youth unemployment, especially amongst girls, is very high. This is because of, number one, the issue of society, let me say norms, whereby the girls
cultural
are not...
norms that are there.
Cultural norms and things like that. Then the disadvantage that the girls are actually having in terms of accessing opportunities, because they're actually in a patriarchal kind of society whereby the boys, or let me say the male gender is at an advantage. So it's also a contributing factor. Other than these other issues of the economy, the society, and I will not generalize that. I will not generalize to say that the entire society is contributing to this, but some communities are actually contributing to this. The Maasai areas, the marginalized areas of the northeastern, Turkana, and also apart from the community, we are looking at unemployment in the rural areas is very high, and this is simply because of number one, information. The youth in the urban areas tend to have an advantage in terms of accessing this information. Where are the jobs? What are the changing trends in the youth employment space? Unlike the youth in the rural areas who lack this, let me say, advantage of access to information.
Now, I like the fact that you've brought in this whole aspect of information, because it brings the bigger picture of even education in itself, because we are all supposed to go through the same system, but the disparities that lay there are mind-blowing. And that brings me to the fact that looking at our institutions, and especially those of higher learning, each institution has its own version of the curriculum. Could this be one of the reasons as to why we are seeing these rates of unemployment and these differences between those that are based in the rural or the urban setups?
Definitely. And to
what extent do you think it actually contributes the rates of unemployment?
I would say to a larger extent. Number one, because if you look at our education system, and it's good that we're actually transitioning from the
844
to the CBC.
Yeah.
And it's good that we are actually starting to see the labor market actors get really involved in the education decisions in the country. Initially, you'll realize that someone just gets into school, does his 844, let me say Form 4, gets into the tertiary institutions, and jumps directly into the labor market in search for jobs. And in that setup, you'll realize that the labor market players, especially the likes of the FKE, the Federation of Kenya Juakali Association, these stakeholders were not fully involved in the shaping up of this curriculum.
Yes.
But right now we are trying. We've actually started seeing a lot of involvement of the labor market stakeholders in trying to shape the future of these children, because I'll just take you back. If you look at currently the way the tertiary education system is structured, you'll realize that, let me say at the technical vocational level, you'll realize that we have an institution like NITA, which is doing the same things like what the TVETs are actually doing. NITA has its own curriculum, TVETA has its own curriculum. You'll realize that maybe a University of Nairobi has its curriculum for respective courses. KU has its own version, its own version. But when you come to the table, you'll realize that these curriculums are not harmonized.
Yes.
Or even if they are actually addressing the gaps in the labor market, there is a shortfall whereby the labor market players are not involved. And this is where the issue of skills mismatch comes in. Because you're graduating, actually over 800,000 to a million
graduates
young people graduate every year.
Yes.
And they are going to the same labor market space. But when they get there, you realize that this one has a particular skill, the other person has another skill. And yet the opportunities which are there are structured in a way that that mismatch is actually coming in because they were not involved in the in the planning, in the development of this curriculum. So CBC, to some extent, okay, we are yet to see, because it's still early, but we are hopeful that it's going to address this issue of skills mismatch, because when the labor market players are really involved in the shaping up of the curriculum, it means that the issue of skills mismatch will not be there, because we will be having graduates who meet what the labor market is actually looking for.
So from where you stand, what do you think needs to be done to just ensure that quality in learning institutions is in a bracket that accommodates at least a huge majority of the young people? Because we cannot say that we can just wake up and get to 100%, but getting to a point where when it comes to the skills that are being taught at institutions are relevant to the job market to avoid this whole mismatch situation that we are seeing.
Number one, I usually emphasize that any decision that is made around issues that are meant to address young people, the youth need to be involved. And there has been this notion that basically young people like saying, nothing for us without us. So these are decisions...
That's more of a saying than it being practical.
It needs to be practiced. Actually, it needs to be practiced. Because you see, these are decisions that are affecting the future of the young people. So when you look at the economy, the young people are the ones who know what actually they need. You might come up with programs, policies for youth development, but without involving the young people. That is why you realize that government comes up with policies and programs when they are in implementation, 5 years down the line, they flop, because young people are not involved in the decision-making platform. So at Plan International, what we are trying to do is to ensure that we address this issue from a multi-sectoral point of view, whereby youth are on the table, on that policy formulation, policy influencing table. The private sector is there, government is there, the labor market players are there. So coming up with a solution to address youth unemployment, especially in the current age whereby COVID is actually taking away the gains we've made, requires the FKEs to be on the table, to actually tell us the labor market space is actually changing, and this is how we need to go. The education players, the academia, they need to be on the table. You see, we have curriculums that are actually outdated.
Yes.
Or if they have
and yet
been,
they're still being offered.
Exactly, they're still being offered. There are some courses which are being offered in the universities, the tertiary institutions that are not relevant in the current age.
Yes.
And that's why you'll realize that you get a lot of young people who are out there who are unemployed. You talk to them, you realize that some of them have degrees, but they can't find that meaningful job. Or you get them taking jobs which are actually underpaying them. So we are not only looking at the issue of unemployment, we're also looking at another issue of underemployment.
Yes.
Because you're out there, you've graduated, you can't get the right job that maybe matches your skills, but you have to feed yourself. So you end up taking a job that is actually underpaying you. And that is why I can actually say we still have a long way to go in achieving the issue of decent employment, whereby you can earn let me say you can get a job that can actually give you income that can sustain you better and make you advance.
Yes.
So it's just an issue of all the labor market stakeholders, the young people, the private sector and government come together and define the destiny of the young people.
All right. Yeah. Now let's focus on the young people, because they are also part of the problem. Most graduates, when you get out of school, you want to get a formal job. And we look at our counterparts who are in the TVET institutions, and we sort of look down on them. There's this perception among the youth that TVET courses are not good enough jobs, they're not going to offer them good enough opportunities or jobs for that matter. What do you think is actually pushing them to think this way? Because when you actually get to the ground and when you're looking for professionals in the TVET sector, you have to look before you actually find somebody who's actually done a TVET course to offer a service or product that you may be needing, therefore showing that there is opportunity in this particular side of the divide. But we have youth fighting for this formal blue collar and white collar jobs.
Then can I shock you? In 2019, I think it's still the census report. It actually indicated that I think in 2018, sorry, 18 million people were actually employed in 2018. I think that is the latest statistics that I actually have. But out of these 18 million, 15 million people were employed in the informal sector.
Imagine that.
So the formal sector only accommodated 3 million people. So using those statistics, I can actually tell you that there is a paradigm shift in the employment space. Nowadays, getting employment in the formal sector is extremely hard.
Yes.
But a young person who comes from the TVET, he will actually barely take 3 to 6 months to access a job in the informal sector. Because, number one, just as I indicated when we were starting this show, the formal labor market is not growing. It's actually shrinking.
Saturated.
And it's saturated, and it is the one which is, I would actually say it is very volatile. When something comes up like COVID, the formal sector is hit badly.
Extremely.
Compared to the informal sector.
Yes.
When you look at like the issue of debt, currently we are, the debt, let me say the debt per capita for Kenya, the debt per capita and the debt ratio to GDP, whatever we are generating as a country vis-a-vis what we are repaying. You know, we are looking at sustaining the formal economy or the formal sector. We don't have enough resources to to sustain the formal economy.
Yes.
And that is why you can really, if you look at the public sector, there are some parastatals, or let me say ministries, which have actually frozen employment. So there are no jobs in the public sector. How many doctors are out there? They've graduated, but they don't have a job.
So what can we do to just remind the youth that it's not always green on the other side? Like, take advantage of what you have or where you are, as opposed to just because you went through this university or this college, you want to get formal employment at this particular institution, disregarding the opportunity that could be there in the more mechanical or technical areas.
I would actually say the youth unemployment issue is also an attitude issue. Because number one, we've all grown knowing that, you know, I want to be a doctor. Our parents instilled that issue in us, that I'm taking you to school, I want you to be that doctor. I want
There are certain versions of success.
Those versions of success. I don't remember my dad telling me, I want you to finish school and become a plumber. Because you see, but I don't blame them, because, you know, during that time, the formal labor market was actually blooming. Yeah, it was actually, those opportunities were there.
Yes.
But you see, as I indicated, the population is growing. The opportunities are shrinking because the space, let me say the formal labor market spaces, is actually shrinking. And another challenge that makes us to be at this level, whereby we just want to go for the formal jobs. There is I would actually say there is a missing link, especially in the basic education level,
yes,
whereby we lack some bit of mentorship and sustained career advisory support, whereby you know, at that level, we need to start empowering, and that's the beauty of CBC, is that, you know, in that classroom, these children are being nurtured in a way that they know, I don't have to be a doctor.
Yes.
I can be a good musician. I can be a good carpenter. I can be a good painter.
Based on their competence.
Based on their competence. Yeah. So this is lacking in the current education system. The issue of mentorship, the issue of career coaching at the basic level, it needs to be done. And we have a resource that is actually, that can actually do this, the alumni. The alumni of these schools. For instance, let me say, if a school has a successful doctor, this doctor can come back and actually present the challenges doctors are actually facing out there, and actually change the mindset of these young people, that you don't have to be a doctor to make it in life.
Yes.
You get? And then looking at the numbers that I've just showed you, as in told you, the 15 million in 2019 who are actually employed in the informal sector, that's a very big number.
Very.
And it shows that that is where the jobs are. Because if you look at the current programs that are being run, for instance, the KYEOP, the World Bank program, the KYOP, it's actually concentrated in generating talent or graduates who are actually going to transform the informal sector. And that is where the jobs are.
Now, as we bring this conversation to a close, maybe we could talk a bit about some of these soft skills that should cut across regardless of whatever course you were doing, because one big problem that became a reality for most people is that young people lack financial literacy, and that is something that COVID-19 has ripped the band-aid and showed people, due to the number of loans that people had to take to just survive, and even for some, for just a number of reasons that were not even relevant to start with. When it comes to some of these soft skills that could be acquired, you know, when in some of the TVET institutions, do you think they need to be made mandatory for all youth, which are regardless of the institution, or even being put in part of the higher education, maybe let's say secondary school for that matter, for it to be a requirement that every student must undergo and learn some of these soft skills to just help them stay employed to start with?
Actually, they are very key. And I wouldn't say that we need to start preparing them at the tertiary level, but they need to start being, let me say, integrated into the education system from an early stage. Because you see, we are looking at skills like problem solving. If I employ someone in my company with that technical skill. I need someone who can actually think outside the box.
Yes.
Solve problems. I need someone who is emotionally intelligent. I need someone who is able to work well in teams. I don't want a lone ranger. I want someone who can actually sit in a team and do what? Solve issues in a team setup. I need a good communicator. Basically, I'm looking at someone who is not just using the technical skills to get the job. I'm looking at someone who can actually keep the job and make that job actually add value to me. I need the company to grow. So basically, where we are going, we will not only be looking at the technical skills. We'll not only be looking at, you are an engineer, you'll get an engineering job.
Yes.
I need to see the other skills. We call them the 21st century workplace skills.
Your people skills.
The people
AKA.
skills. Yes, yeah. So I need to see more beyond what you actually paid tuition for.
Okay.
Yeah. And these skills, I wouldn't say that they are taught. It comes, they're actually supposed to be acquired through, let me say, when someone is self-driven. You need to understand that, yes, I'm a good doctor, yes, but how will I ensure that my technical skills add value to the workplace? I am going to work with people. How will I work with people? I am going to face challenges in a changing world. How will I solve problems? And things like that. So basically, the young people need to, they're supposed to start getting these skills from an early age, from the basic education. At the tertiary level, we'll focus on the technicals. But these others, the soft skills,
yes,
they need to be in your DNA.
As early as possible. This goes back to the education system and the curriculum itself.
Exactly.
Now, we want to bring this conversation to a close at this point, but again, we are looking forward to having you again to continue with this discussion. We cannot exhaust it in this one sitting, but thank you so much for coming through and just being a part of this discussion, helping us understand, when it comes to our youth and their employable capacity, how are we doing as a country, and what do we need to do better to make sure that we stop complaining about the youth being unemployed, the youth not being entrepreneurial enough, but address the problem from the root, and then we'll see the manifestation of our labor once you address the problem at the root. We have been speaking with Nahashon Gulali. He is the Youth Empowerment and Economic Strengthening Coordinator at Plan International here in Kenya. Thank you so much once again.
It was a pleasure. Asante sana.
Karibu sana. Now, that's it for Good Morning Kenya. We want to say thank you so much for staying with us through and through. Be sure to join us again tomorrow morning right here on KBC for another fantastic edition of Good Morning Kenya. I'm Jane Wamboi. Have a lovely day. God bless. See you tomorrow.